very good morning, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to Newsroom. We are here with you on this Monday, and of course a number of stories that we're going to cover as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preslin. I'll be with you until 1200 hours. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on your YouTube channel. Now, we're asking you a question today because we are talking about advertising. And advertising in a generic sense, but there's a lot more to it. And the question that we pose to you, there's the new inclusion of mother tongue vernacular adverts in the awards for the Penduring. And we're asking you, is this perhaps a new beginning for black creatives? That's the question we pose to you. Let us know what's on your mind. Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines with Kendall Makamate.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Top of our story is the Transport Minister orders the RTMC to investigate the cause of the bus accident that killed 11 people in the Free State yesterday. The City of Cape Town says additional buses will be deployed to assist Metro Rail to transport commuters. And Oscar Pistorius to appear in the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria for the setting down of a date for his sentencing for murder. And also coming up in sports today, South Africa's Brendan Grace shoots a brilliant 500 par 66 to take his first ever US PGA Tour victory at the RBC Heritage.
That's going to do it. And this is why we just love sevens.
Kenya destroy favourites Fiji to win their first ever cup final, running out 37 winners in Singapore.
Congratulations.
And a resurgent Rafael Nadal blitzes Gael Monfils in 3 sets to win his 9th Monte Carlo Masters. And there you have it now. Top of our stories for this morning. Transport Minister Dipuo Peters has ordered the Road Traffic Management Corporation to immediately begin investigating the cause of the bus crash in which 11 people were killed in the Free State yesterday. The deceased were all ANC volunteers travelling back from the party's manifesto launch in Port Elizabeth on Saturday.
Bodies lying motionless after being thrown from the wreckage. The bus carrying almost 65 passengers apparently lost control and overturned, and all the tires still intact. According to the reports, the drivers were allegedly exchanging seats while the vehicle was in motion. The bus assistant driver has denied the claims.
They are totally wrong. I was sitting and next to the driver in the other seat. So I just see the bus losing control and going fast to the steering. So these people, they just saw 2 drivers along the steering wheel, I think so. So they would think that they were exchanging driving while the bus is moving.
We believe the investigation is the one that's going to reveal to us what might have happened. But according to what we see on the crime scene here, the driver has lost control of the bus and the bus overturned.
More than 50 injured passengers have been taken to various hospitals in the area. Some of the critically injured passengers were airlifted using an emergency helicopter. Ishmael Muriba, SABC News, Windberg.
And now, of course, for more on the story, we now cross to our reporter who's at the High Court in Pretoria. Griselda, good morning.
Well, a very good morning to you, Kendall.
Griselda, do we know what time court is due to start today?
Well, we're expecting proceedings to get underway at 9:30 here at the North Gauteng High Court. But what you're seeing behind me here at the moment are supporters for Oscar Pistorius who came to court from very early this morning. There's also a placard that's been signed from around the world. People saying they're here to support Oscar Pistorius. They believe that Oscar Pistorius was tried by the media and essentially that he had been prejudiced in this matter, saying that this matter, even though there'd been similar cases says Oscar Pistorius' case had been handled quite differently. They're saying they're here to support Oscar Pistorius. You can see that banner just here behind me. That's the banner that has been signed from people around the world, which indicates that Oscar Pistorius, they say similar cases were treated differently. He was tried by the media, also saying that he was abused and bullied. Those are just some of the placards that we're seeing here this morning. But we're expecting proceedings to be extremely short here this morning, where they will formalize the date from the 13th to the 17th of June, where sentencing proceedings will get underway. Of course, Oscar Pistorius faces the prospect of 15 years in jail for murder when those proceedings get underway. But what we also do know at this stage is that Judge Thokozile Masipa will not preside over the matter this morning. We understand that Judge Ledwaba will preside over the matter here this morning. That's expected to take just a few minutes, but no word at this stage, or none of the family members from the Steenkamp family have arrived here this morning. We're not expecting them to be at court here this morning, but we're expecting Oscar Pistorius to arrive just in the next few minutes here at the court. There's also been much speculation about whether he will arrive at court here this morning. You'd recall, of course, that we got confirmation from the Department of Correctional Services that Oscar Pistorius had been hospitalized. They refused to say, of course, what he was hospitalized for, so there is much speculation about whether he will be at court this morning. Then eventually we did get confirmation from the National Prosecuting Authority that he will be at court this morning for the formal postponement of this matter for the 13th to the 17th of June.
Griselda, please tell us, is there any indication why it is that it's Judge Ledwaba that's taking care of proceedings as opposed to Judge Masipa today?
Well, we've just received that information, Kendall. We're yet to speak to the relevant authorities to find out why that was the case. But initially, when we spoke to the National Prosecuting Authority, you must recall that when a decision was taken that the 18th of April today will be the date where we will come back and get a formal postponement to this matter. There'd been no consultation that was made with Judge Thokozile Masipa. That was just a provisional date that had been set for today, of course, pending whether the Constitutional Court will hear Oscar Pistorius' matter. You'd recall, once the Supreme Court of Appeal had ruled that Oscar Pistorius should have been found guilty of murder and that essentially the matter be brought back to this court, that was not done in consultation with Judge Thokozile Masipa at the time. So a provisional date was put through. Perhaps in terms of availability, that's just mere speculation at this point, Kendall, that perhaps you may not have been available for this date. But we'll certainly get confirmation and find out why that was the case this morning. But we're expecting proceedings to get underway at 9:30 this morning. We're still waiting for Oscar Pistorius to arrive, but many would want to see, of course, Oscar Pistorius' condition, given the fact that he'd been hospitalized. Many questions raised about what exactly his condition is. So Oscar had not been seen in public for several months. So certainly everybody would want to get that first glimpse of him again, and perhaps try and speak to his legal representatives about whether the former athlete is doing well or what the situation is regarding him at the moment. But supporters have amassed here outside the North Gauteng High Court, others saying justice denied anywhere diminishes justice everywhere, of course attributing that quote to Martin Luther King Jr. We're expecting proceedings to get underway here very shortly. None of the legal representatives have arrived here at this stage. We're expecting that to happen in just the next few minutes, Kendall.
I see quite a massive supporters outside court standing by there. You've spoken to a couple of them. Are any of them available to say anything to us right now, or can you quote any of them directly?
Well, certainly, Kendall, we did manage to speak to a few of them a bit earlier on, and take a listen to what some of them had to say.
I think it was unfair treatment, because he was prejudged from the very first day. And because, like, I can just talk, for example, for myself. I was watching on TV, and I didn't know him before as a sportive man. And I just saw a man walking in there in the court, and it was like a modern stoning. He was prejudged all over. And I thought it's really strange, because there was not a single day in the court. But yeah, he's prejudged, and that's not okay. And then I started to watch the trial and the facts and everything. Yeah. So it went on.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. From day one. and I'm sorry, I've said it to the others, it was a trial by media. From the day the news broke about this, Oscar was ridiculed. There's so much hatred out there for Oscar, and we had to show that he has got support, and he has got a lot of support. The names on this banner are just a drop in the ocean of the supporters. There's in excess of 25,000 that support Oscar. This was a bit of a rushed banner because we decided today was the day we're coming out to show Oscar our support.
Griselda, sounds very interesting. Thank you very much for bringing us all of that.
Just to bring you up to speed also there, Kendall, Oscar Pistorius has just arrived here at the North Gauteng High Court. As you can hear, he was brought in just a few minutes ago. He's arrived here, and some of the supporters that are outside this court have been ululating. So Oscar Pistorius has just arrived at the North Gauteng High Court. We're expecting proceedings to get underway, of course, in the next few minutes.
Griselda Lewis, thank you so much for bringing us live from just outside the court, with Oscar arriving with all of his supporters around her. Of course, that was Oscar Pistorius appearing in the High Court in Pretoria. Now, our next story is about another court case where Czech fugitive Radovan Krejcir and his 4 co-accused are expected to appear in the High Court in Johannesburg. This on charges relating to the murder of Lebanese national Sam Issa. Issa was gunned down in a drive-by shooting incident in Bedford View, east of Johannesburg in 2013. Krejcir is currently facing 9 charges, along with Sponiso Mia, Nganiso Mafunda and Spiwe Mamela, as well as Lumbio Grigorov. Krejcir was sentenced in February to 35 years in prison for kidnapping, drug dealing and attempted murder. He's expected to apply for leave to appeal the conviction and sentence on Friday. Another story that's been making headlines of late is the City of Cape Town says additional buses will be deployed today to assist Metro Rail to transport commuters. Continued sabotage of the rail passenger services property has compromised its capacity. In the past week, 15 coaches were destroyed when trains were set alight in 3 separate incidents. Extra MyCity buses will be deployed to the N2 Express route between Mitchell's Plain and Khayelitsha and Cape Town. And we now hand over to Elvis President, who carries on with the news bulletin.
Well, thank you, Kendall. And of course, today we're asking you that question. I think if we can just have it on the screen. We're talking advertising today, celebrating its 21st year in style, the Penduring Advertising Awards. And we're asking you, is the inclusion of mother tongue vernacular adverts a new beginning for black creatives in the country? You can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle as well as on the Facebook page, and I'll read them a little bit later. Now, celebrating 21st years, or 21 years rather, in style, the Penduring Advertising Awards has truly come of age by opening its doors to all South Africa's indigenous languages. Now, this means that the truly South African section, with its 4 subcategories in which the entries in indigenous languages, excluding Afrikaans, competed, now falls away, so that each one of South Africa's indigenous languages can now compete on equal footing for Penduring sought-after gold and silver trophies in all the categories. Now, besides its loyalty to its strong Afrikaans roots, Penduring is increasingly seen as the ideal vehicle to promote creativity and rouse renewed interest in all the other indigenous languages in our country. Now, to discuss the Penduring Awards, we are joined in studio by Japie Gous, the chairman of the Penduring board, as well the board of directors. Japie, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning. Nice to be
Now,
here.
for you, it must have been an elative moment, a very exciting moment in Afrikaans, in the Penduring history, for that matter.
Now, Elvis, I think we already started doing this a few years ago, but the whole truly South African category was, however, overwhelmed by English adverts.
Yes.
And people just using the words braai and boerewors and something like that, and then it becomes truly South African.
Yes.
So what happened last year, we took away the English part with the braai and the boerewors, and just said, let's just use the indigenous languages, because that's where the growth for the future lies, and that's also the languages that didn't come to its right in the whole advertising business. So
Now, we're going to come back to that because we're going to talk a lot more about that, but I want you to take us back.
Yeah.
A number of years ago, 21 years ago, when Penduring was started. Tell us about the history, about the awards, and how it came about.
Now, the Penduring Award started 21 years ago I work for the ATKV, the ATKV, and the ATKV then decided that we should start a competition for advertising awards also in Afrikaans. The only other advertising awards in South Africa is the Luries, which are mainly English. And so we started that. And about 10 years ago, we started the truly South African part. And that's how that started it, and now we are where we are with all the indigenous languages taking part on an equal basis.
So the need really was there to just start off with Afrikaans at that point in time and to make sure to give it a place where it can be recognized, right? So what does the Penduring Award means for the advertising industry as we stand today?
The Penduring is a well sought after award. People like that. When you go into advertising companies and you see in the boardrooms and so on, all the prizes standing there. If there's Pendurings, they are very proud of that. So, and that sort of enhance the creativeness of people, especially younger people, and fresh and new advertising. So that's what we like to recognize, and I think people see Penduring for that. And above all of that, there's also a very nice big prestige prize every year.
Let's just take a look at some of the ads currently playing on the screen there, and then we're going to come back to discussion. If we can just highlight that for us a short while with some sound there. Yes, let's see if we can do that. Well, there you have it. There you see the ad, and I see if we can get the sound up as well there.
Hi, man. I like the sushi. Eh? The sushi sticks. The one of us, the ababa sticks, the kebabs. Tina, I want to bet DS. Shangama pounds, eh? Pound! Saga, pounds!
It is TV malume. Nathi githi sesinayo.
Ntwana kabani? Phone me a ring. Ah, Mr. Minister, hey, that was quick, man.
For just 99 rands a month, you can get great entertainment.
That's absolutely fantastic. Now, why was it then necessary, Yalpi, at this point in time to start the advertising industry and include all the vernaculars into the Penduring?
We actually started that last year, and as an, let's call it an exercise. And it was so successful that we decided, let's open the whole thing for all the indigenous languages in all categories. And we also increased the top prize for the other indigenous languages to the same price as for the Afrikaans languages. We call that the Umpeta Award, and that's also, it's a 100,000 Rand study trip to anywhere in the world.
I tell you, that sounds fantastic. What motivated that change to include the vernacular languages into the awards? And why now? Why did it take so long?
Yeah, I think all the indigenous languages in South Africa, we are an Afrikaans award company, but we look also at all the other indigenous languages, and we see that they are all under pressure. Everything is becoming English. It's just, we saw that people are just thinking it's okay to just advertise in English, whereas 90% of the population of South Africa, their home language is not English.
Yes.
And that's why we did it, and try to actually give the opportunity for people to say it's okay to advertise also in indigenous languages. Also because people listen more to indigenous languages, they understand it better, and there's always some funny stuff in the advert, so people enjoy it more. So what we say, it pays to advertise in indigenous languages.
Somebody once said that if you speak a man's language, you speak to his heart, and that's exactly where you probably want to go to.
That was Madiba that said that.
Yes. Now, there's another advert that we got up here. Let's see if we can get that up and running as well to one of the ads.
Sibatshelile wema niyezi khosi namhlanje niyezi khosi niyezi khosi helele ma niyezi khosi helele ma niyezi khosi helele ma niyezi khosi helele niyezi khosi helele ma niyezi khosi helele ma niyezi khosi Niyezikhosi.
Aye, yebhakaniya liyezikhosi. Vodacom, power to you.
Absolutely fantastic adverts. Now, I think if you look at these ads, I mean, they've got some real creative value to them. Is that perhaps what is happening right now, that black creatives are coming to the fore and coming on their own right now, or coming out on their own?
Yeah, I think so. There are quite a number of black creative people working for the advertising agencies. Many of them worked more in English up to now. And what we're trying to do is to say, no, just use your own language also. And we hope that companies paying for making advertisements will actually put this, a part of their budget aside for that.
Do you expect a huge turnout from indigenous creatives to enter the awards this year, though?
Yes, we think so. Last year we had quite a good number of entries, but we think, I think we marketed the whole thing better this year. And we really think that we're going to get much more advertising entries.
Now, I think the question that everybody would like to ask is, why don't we have just one awards for South African awards, which include English, Afrikaans, and of course vernacular languages? Why do we have these parallel awards like the Luries and the Pendurang? And by the way, there's no vernacular one for that matter.
Yes. Yeah, over years, and I think that's what happened 21 years ago, that the Luries, the Afrikaans advertising just sort of disappeared into the whole Lurie competition, and that's why Pendurang started. And we still think it's necessary to do that. The fact that we bring along all the indigenous languages to participate in Pendurang also create a platform for them to participate in. The platform is just so much bigger. And, you know, we also use other judges understanding those languages and understanding the culture of people to help us with the competition. And I just think that people may say, okay, let's just have one, but also we are a diverse nation. And I think we should also show the diversity of everything in South Africa to everybody else.
Is there enough advertising value into something like this, where you create this added space for black creatives to come on board?
We think so. I don't think it's been explored to the best of what it can be. We are in difficult economic times, so most people, where the first thing they cut in the budget is the marketing budget and the advertising budget. So there's quite a lot of stress on that. But we think that if you look at the value that you will get from your advert, that's what people should do. That's what creative companies should do. That's what marketing managers should do, is to weigh up the value that they will get for every rand spent in advertising. And then all the media, you know, just the radio stations. There are, I don't know how many radio stations of the SABC in all the indigenous languages. And there's many adverts there. So where can they actually participate? What we say, come to Pendurang, we've got space for you now.
Yapi, I'd like to thank you so much for coming through, thank you for giving us your take. We'll speak to a representative of yours a little bit later to give us a breakdown of the prices and so forth, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That was Yapi Gous, the chairman of Pendurang's board of directors, joining us in studio. And we continue, of course, the theme today is advertising, and we're talking about the integration of vernacular adverts into the Pendurang. Let's take a look at the comments right now that is coming through. The ANC has confirmed that 11 people have died and 59 were critically injured in a crash in the Free State early yesterday. Officials say the driver lost control of the bus. An investigation to determine the cause of the crash is currently underway. Let's take a look at some of your comments, and remember that you can send those comments to @SABC Newsroom. Let's take a look. This one from Zwelenzima Vavi says, my deepest condolences to the families of the 10 ANC supporters who tragically died in the bus accident. A speedy recovery to the injured. African Dialogue says, condolences to the family who lost their loved ones in the ANC bus crash. And this one from Fatikaki says, sincere condolences to the families of both the deceased and the injured members of the ANC involved in the bus accident. God heals souls. This one from Advocate Tuli Madonsela. He also says deepest condolences to the Atmai ANC and families of ANC delegates who died in a bus accident this morning. Wishing you a speedy recovery, that is to the injured. Those are some of the comments on the bus crash this morning, so you can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Now, let's take a look at what's happening in the news today. If we take a look here in the court, two high-profile cases came before the court today in Pretoria. The sentencing hearing in the Oscar Pistorius murder conviction case is expected to be postponed in the North Gauteng High Court. We'll keep you updated on that one. Sentencing will take place on the 15th of June. Griselda Lewis is standing by to give us an update after 10 o'clock, so you have to stay tuned. Radovan Krecher will appear in the High Court sitting in Palm Ridge for the murder of Sam Issa Krecher and four others, Sibonisa Mia, Nkanyiso Mafunda, Nsimpiwe Mamela, and Lyobimir Borislav Grigorov are facing 9 counts, including murder, for allegedly plotting and conducting Issa's murder. And of course, we also give you an update on that story. Statistician General Dr. Pali Lohotla will release stats on the social profile of youth. The report analyzes the socio-economic and demographic profile of South Africa's youth, focusing on employment, education, access to housing and basic services, access to food, and the receipt of social grants by the youth, etc. In the Free State, the Labour Minister, Mildred Oliphant, will officially launch 63 million rand care and rehabilitation facility in Welkom. Now, that facility is taking care of injured workers and ensures that their beneficiaries and pensioners receive the best quality care. Now, those are some of the news on the diary today. But now let's take a look at what's happening on the front pages of the newspapers around the globe. And we start off in Europe. The Times reports that Britain will be poorer by the equivalent of £4,300 a year per household if there's a vote to leave the European Union. George Osborne claims today. Now, moving to New York, the Wall Street Journal says that Ecuador was reeling after its strongest earthquake in decades killed hundreds and destroyed buildings, bridges and roads. In Iran, the Tehran Times reports that Iran's Ministry of Energy plans to increase the capacity of domestic power plants by 5,324 megawatts. That's equaling 7% by the end of the current Iranian calendar year. Now, those are some of the news headlines around the globe. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News Channel.
As you know, Oscar Pistorius is in court today, so let's go live to the court now to find out what is the latest in the High Court in Pretoria.
Mr. Nell, the matter will be proceeding with the sentence from the 13th of June to the 17th of June this year. Okay.
We'll all be ready.
All be ready. Okay, thank you. Will you wish to add anything?
Yes, my Lord. The only thing is I've been instructed merely to place on record, my Lord, that the tracking device that the accused has, he is currently on his third tracking device, my Lord, as it keeps malfunctioning and providing the accused with warnings that he's violated his conditions while he's still at his residence. We're currently on the third device, my lord, which is still giving violation warnings while he is at home. My instructions in this regard is that the accused is keeping proper logs of all the warnings that come through, my lord, but I've merely just been requested to place this on the court record.
I think that the investigating officer will attend to the malfunctioning of the system.
It would even be easier, my lord. We have people from correctional services present today, and we'll deal with it just after the general vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Stand up, Mr. Pistorius. Your matter is postponed. Let me first start by dealing with the draft order. The court order that I made previously is amended accordingly, and the draft order marked X is made an order of this court. Your matter is postponed to the 13th of June 2016, and it will be heard until the 17th of June 2016. Do you understand? Do you understand?
Yes.
Right. Anything? Anything? Thank you.
That concludes our votes.
Okay. Court adjourns.
Well, there you hear it, or you heard it there from the judge. The matter has been postponed to the 13th of June up until the 17th of June. That is the postponement for Oscar Pistorius. So we've got to wait a little bit longer. So stay tuned, and we'll bring you up to speed with the latest with our reporter a little bit later, Griselda Lewis, to giving us the latest there from court. There was a lot of support coming from the court there as well, so we'll take that in stride as we continue. Remember that we're also asking you that question today. The question relates to advertising. And of course, we're talking advertising. The vernacular adverts has been included into the Penduring Awards, and we're asking the question, is the inclusion of mother tongue vernacular adverts a new beginning for black creatives? That's the question. Let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page. By the way, if you like us there on the Facebook page, you become part and parcel of the Informed on Newsroom. You can also tweet us at SABC Newsroom. Now, the truly South African section of the Penduring Awards, with its 4 subcategories of indigenous languages that excludes Afrikaans, is now falling away. In order for all South Africa's indigenous languages to compete on equal footing, for Penduring sought after gold and silver trophies in all the categories. Now, for reaction on the Penduring Awards that have opened its doors to all South Africa's indigenous languages, we are joined by Sibusiso Setola, the co-founder and creative director of The Odd Number, and Festus Masekwameng. Can I get that right? Festus, help me. Masekwameng, the managing partner and executive director at MKT Media. Very good morning to both of you, gentlemen, and welcome.
Thanks. Good morning.
Now, you see, that's why we need vernacular advertising. Now, to both of you, are you excited about the Penduring opening its doors to all the indigenous languages of South Africa to compete on an equal footing for the gold and silver trophies?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I think it's about time. I think all it does is it forces creative departments around the country to start thinking in vernacular and indigenous languages. It forces transformation to start happening within the agencies, where we need more creatives who can speak various languages. And really, I think it's going to make the work interesting, a lot more interesting.
How about you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Completely agreed. I think it's about time. It's high time. And remember, when we're talking advertising in vernacular languages, we're not talking where you just take an English concept and then translate it or send it for translation. So these adverts that are conceptualized and crafted in an original indigenous language. So, yeah, it's a great development.
It's a new beginning?
Definitely, and I think it's hopefully it ushers in a new era, really, of the kind of creative work that we make in this industry locally.
Was there always perhaps a space available for black advertising that never really got to its true potential, for that matter?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think most of the advertising agencies, struggle to promote, to develop black talent, So there's a chance for, raw talent to come through, especially the writers, the copywriters, as well as the creative directors. And I mean, I think also the Penduring Awards is probably amongst the last of the local advertising shows, to endorse, and promote languages in indigenous form as well. So it's a great opportunity as well for the youngsters. I mean, the country's always changing. You know, I mean, you've seen even the youngsters at the various universities fighting for, you know, inclusion of African languages, at least as a medium of instruction. So this is also, I think, reflective of the times and as well as the new era that we're going into.
But how important is mother tongue language in advertising? Is that very important, and can it increase sales?
Well, the thing about language is connection. You know, it's the best way to connect with your market. You know, so when we talk about how important it is, you need to look at how important is your market to you as the brand. You know, and if your market is really that important to you, I think you'll make some strides in making sure that the way you communicate, the way you connect, is relevant and insightful and nuanced to the market that you're advertising to.
So, Bill, were you surprised by the inclusion of mother tongue languages in Pendurang, for that matter?
Not really. I must be honest, not really. Because I think it's been you know, sort of something that we've been thinking about for some time as an industry. And I think it's only right. As Fista's actually said now, it's a sign of the times. You know, we are becoming more diverse. We need to start taking the step in including all sorts of languages and making our advertising more interesting.
What do you think, Festus, motivated the entire move from Pendurang to include black creatives? Was it because that black creatives are coming to the fore now, or was there other reasons perhaps?
Look, I mean, as an industry, we've been lobbying for this kind of change, you know, for a while. I think, in all honesty, there was always a category that recognizes African languages, except, you know, it was a special category, you know. They were not necessarily competing at the same level, you know. But also because we've seen lots of campaigns before that have delivered sales, you know, based on being crafted properly in the African languages. I mean, take radio advertising, for instance. SABC Radio is responsible for at least up to, you know, 80% of South Africans who listen to, you know, the likes of Ukozi FM, Tobela FM. So it basically makes a lot of business sense to be able to communicate to those people creatively in order to entice them towards your brand.
The reason for this, because Pendurang is running for 21 years now, the Luris has always been there. The reason for this long wait to include vernacular languages, although that 90% of this population speak vernacular?
I actually wouldn't know why it's taken so long, to be honest.
I think if you probably look at the history of the Pendurang Awards, how they were formed at the time, Afrikaans was one of the more marginalized languages, funny enough. You know, a good 21 years ago, all of the advertising was done in English. But also, you know, from the sponsor's point of view, you know, Media 24 was also an opportunity for them to promote some of the publications in the stable and also promote the language while advertising in Afrikaans. So, you know, over the years, it's evolved to include even other aspects of advertising, including TV, you know, web design, digital, in fact, and also one of the most popular categories is the student category, you know, so where all the students actually submit their entries and stand to win some fantastic cash prizes. So.
For both of you, have you witnessed perhaps any notable successes of mother tongue indigenous languages or adverts here in South Africa as well as maybe abroad?
Definitely. There's a couple I could call up. I mean, I think there was an old KFC ad that was really did well, which was Shanwam with the hands in the hands, and, you know, I mean, that was fantastic. More recently, another KFC ad was the Kulichana commercial, which was also all in vernac. I think DSTV's made some strides as well. So we're definitely seeing a build in more nuanced, more vernacular sort of advertising.
Festus, do you expect a lot of creatives now to jump on board and really go for it in terms of these awards?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think this development is also in response to, you know, some of their, you know, deepest wishes, you know, if I might say. And also, if anything, I mean, Pendurang is one of the only local awards that gives you a cash prize, you know. So if anything else as well. There's some, good money to be made, as well as the, the international study trip that's been sponsored up to about 100,000, But yeah, we think it's a great opportunity. And we expect that, the response would be great as a result.
Now, the question I posed to the chairman a little bit earlier, why is it that we had the Luris, or we have the Luris, and we have the Pendurang, but we had no independent, standalone Black Advertising Awards? Vernacular awards.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think, as an industry, we really won big industry, And I think in state, the attempts had been really to rather transform the existing awards, including the Luri Awards. I mean, the Luri were amongst the first to also respond to this call. In fact, it was championed by the SABC at the time, who were a sponsor, by introducing what you call the New Voice Award, which is strictly about, African languages. But I think also it's just reflective of perhaps the history of our country, and the industry in terms of, how long it's taken for certain, individuals or rather, certain agendas to take prominence, on the various panels that, the leaders of the industry sit on, So I think it's a great thing that they've opened themselves up to this kind of changes, as opposed to resisting. Otherwise, trust me, there was going to be an independent, Black Awards show.
But don't you think it's about time that we have a standalone Black Awards, for vernacular awards for that matter? Or do you think it's perhaps time that we have an all-inclusive award for all South African adverts?
I would go with all-inclusive. I think we're a diverse country by nature. I think we're not just sort of a black advertising. I think it's time that we had a very representative award show, and I think we are making strides to get there.
What are some of the inhibitors, though, to start something like that if it was supposed to be a standalone vernacular adverts only?
Well, you see, most of the black creative professionals are actually proficient in more than one language, including English and Afrikaans. I mean, I know the likes of Sbu have won many awards for adverts done both in the vernacular but also in English, you see. So it has to be inclusive, because English is still predominantly, the marketing language of communication in the country, of which, I mean, the idea was never really to politicize as opposed to promote, marginalized languages so that they can compete on the same level, So some of the inhibitors would probably be, a sponsorship support, because I know the industry will definitely support it. And I mean, most of the brands would also do, because they all advertise on the vernacular radio stations across SABC and the regional ones. So, yeah.
That would be it.
Yeah, that would be it.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. There's a lot more questions, but unfortunately they're telling me we're out of time and we can't go any further.
No.
That was Sibusiso Setola, the co-founder and creative director of The Odd Number, and Festus Masekwameng, the managing partner and executive director at MKT Media, joining us here in studio. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us here. I would like to shake your hand, but I see that we have to go to comments, but we'll do it in a short while. If you can just sit down, let's take a look at some of your comments. And coming on to the social media page on Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. This one, convicted murderer Oscar Pistorius will appear in the Pretoria High Court for a postponement of his sentencing hearing. Meanwhile, the Czech fugitive Radovan Kriča and his 4 co-accused are expected to appear in the High Court in Johannesburg today on charges relating to the murder of the Lebanese national Sam Issa. Remember, you can also send your comments to us at SABC Newsroom. On the Facebook page, let's take a look there. In fact, let's first go to the comments on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. This one from Kaput. It says, just go to jail and take the responsibility for your actions. That's hashtag Oscar Pistorius. Leela says, the Oscars angels say they believe it was a tragic accident and will support him to the end. Says LM, hashtag Oscar Pistorius. This one from KB says, he was communicating with his boss, which is Radovan Kriča, to say that that witness was supposed to be killed. I wonder where that one comes from, KB. That's KB at SABC3. Amanda Watson says, Radovan Kriča tomorrow is going to be interesting to see how they learned Lamont J handles the new defense, how Lamont J. James J handles the new defense team. That one there from Amanda, that was yesterday. Now there you can see the picture of Oscar Pistorius and his supporters there. Global character assassination prejudged from the first day. It's a human rights violation. Hashtag Oscar Pistorius there on the picture of the day there, as you can see it on your screen. Let's now take a look at the Facebook page and see what you have to say on our Facebook page there. Let's see if we can turn it up now. Transport Minister Dipuo Peters has condemned the deliberate destruction of Metro Rail property. She also has called for an immediate end to the violence, vandalism and criminality. Then Christopher Panayoto and his two co-accused, Zizwazake Vumazonke and Sinatemba Nimembe, are expected to reappear in the Port Elizabeth Magistrates Court today. And finally, the Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff lost a crucial impeachment vote in the lower house of Congress yesterday and appeared almost certain to be forced from office in a move that would end 13 years of leftist Workers' Party rule. Now, those are some of the comments on the Facebook page. For more, you can follow us on Facebook. Just search for Newsroom and you'll find it on your Facebook page. Well, let's take a short break and we'll be right back after that. Today, we're discussing advertising. Stay tuned.
We're heading to a future of cars that will drive themselves, and a place where robots will be doing some of our chores. But the challenge in Africa is to make sure that everyone is part of this new world.
To be behind with technology, it is a challenge for us as offenders.
There are many initiatives to ensure that Africans are truly connected.
We're now giving more access and internet to now the end users.
On Network, we have information on Africa's technology landscape, possibilities for the future, and some great African innovations. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time.
We're talking advertising this morning. Penduring Awards and the highest accolades, the Prestige and the Umpeta Awards, will furthermore be of equal standing, both comprising of an overseas trip worth 100,000 Rand for the overall winner of the Best Afrikaans Work in Afrikaans and in the indigenous language, respectively. Now, we're also asking you a question with that. Do you think that this will assist black creatives in the country? Joining us for more on the Penduring Awards, we are joined by Christelle Olmersdal, Penduring's Administration Assistant. A very good morning to you and welcome, Christelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
First and foremost, give us a breakdown of how the prizes will work and for the Vernacular Awards. Are they separate or are they the same?
Well, basically, they are all under the same things. The prizes are distributed this year. So the Prestige Prize is going to have 100,000 Rand overseas study trip. And then our Umpeta, which means Champion Award, will also be having 100,000 Rand overseas study trip. And then, of course, our students, we're also going to be judging them on Afrikaans and Vernacular. So we're going to have 2 overall winning students. So they each get 10,000 Rand. And they get an internship to boost them on their career.
I tell you. What is the selection criteria? Is it similar to that of the Afrikaans adverts for the Vernacular?
Basically, for us, good advertising is good advertising. We work on the same 6 points of criteria, namely being obviously the innovation of the concept, the excellence of the execution, the relevance of the brand, the relevance of the chosen medium, the relevance towards your target media, and of course the likability of the ad.
Yes, yes. Now, you did talk about the prizes, how it will be distributed for the Prestige and the Umpeta. For the students and the other prizes, how does the prize giving work? Do they also get cash amounts?
Yes, our gold winners get 6,000 Rand and our silver winners get 2,500 Rand. So if you're a winner, you're a winner.
No, so that's a lot of money for a student, eh?
No, students can do very well. And it really opens you up to meeting new creatives and stuff, because I've seen it through the years of judging that creatives pick up on students' work and they love seeing and they love picking out of the students' work.
So that would be for radio and television, or just television work?
Or for the students. No, students can enter for radio, for television, and they obviously also have craft. And there's, there's a couple of different categories for the students, but there's plenty of them to choose from. So no matter what you're entering, there's definitely a category for you. And if you can't decide, you call me and I help you decide.
Okay, now talking about that, can creatives still enter? Is it still open for them to enter?
Of course, absolutely. We encourage everyone to enter. So we want your production houses, if you're proud of your work, to enter, the publication houses, obviously the freelancers, because they do work for everyone and they do fabulous work, and obviously our students as well. And now you can make and actually a comment I had from one of our students' lecturer is that they're so excited about the fact that students can now do vernacular work, because a lot of their students, English and Afrikaans aren't their first languages, so now you can make work in your first language and it will be judged on that.
Wonderful. When does it start? The opening?
Our entries are opening on the 9th of May.
Okay, and they can go until when?
Well, we have a closing and
closing date,
closing date, and then we have obviously the judging period, and then our finalists will be announced. But everything's up on our website, and our website's going live on the 9th of May. And you can call me for anything and I can answer all your questions.
So from the 9th of May, you can go online and you can check it out at www.pendurang.co.za.
We're the first one that comes up.
Thank you so much for your time and joining us here in studio. That was Christelle Almusdal, Pendurang's administration assistant, joining us here in studio, telling us more about the awards. And you can enter. The time is still open. 9th of May, that's when the entries will open for Pendurang, so you can go online and find it there. Well, let's take a look at some of the comments that you have sent through this morning. There's search and rescue operations that are currently underway for the survivors of yesterday's earthquake that struck coastal Ecuador. Now, the death toll has risen to 272. And Ecuador's president, Rafael Correa, said yesterday evening that the number is expected to rise as rescue teams dig through the rubble and to take some of these people out of there. Let's take a look at some of the comments that come through from there. There you see the picture there of the destruction of destruction that's happened there with that earthquake. Look at that, eh? Right, here's some of the comments that we have. This one from KIF Foundation. If I can just look at that. We extend our heartfelt condolences to the victim and the families of Ecuador earthquake and the Japanese earthquake as well, says KDF. This one from Amaresh says, wish a speedy recovery and rehabilitation for all injured ones and deepest condolences to the family of having lost the loved ones. Hashtag Ecuador earthquake, Amaresh. Akash Manwani says, Ecuador earthquake takes 272 souls. May this tragic event ends and Ecuador rises up ahead soon, says Akash. This one from Cloud9 says, oh God, have mercy. Hashtag Ecuador earthquake. Now, those are all the comments that we have for you currently. You can also let us know what it means for black creatives in the country right now that the Pendurang has opened up its doors for black creatives to file their work. The question is the inclusion of mother tongue vernacular adverts a new beginning for our black creatives in the country? You can let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page. If you like us there, by the way, you become part and parcel of the Informed, and you can do so on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. But right now, it's time to take a look at your weather forecast with Tsitsi Monare.
Thank you so much. Let's have a look at your weather. Welcome from the weather there. Some partly cloudy skies are expected just towards the central parts of southern Africa and all the way towards the northeastern side. Do expect possibilities of moisture along those parts. Up to 30% chance of showers are expected then. Then by tomorrow, we're expecting most of it towards the western interior and over the southern part of Namibia. Temperature-wise, it's going to be quite a warm day for South Africa. Gaborone in Botswana is at 31. Now back into South Africa, Bloemfontein 25 and 26 for Pietermaritzburg, including Durban, which might even get to the 30s. Beira is at 28 all the way into the mid of Mozambique, the central part of Mozambique. Malawi do expect partly cloudy skies along those parts, possibilities of showers, and also heavy rainfall is expected up north just over South Sudan and also into some parts of a place such as Kampala as well as over Kigali. Bujumbura should also expect possibilities of rain along some of those central cities of Central Africa. Yaoundé is a lot clearer. Dry conditions are expected along those parts, but then by tomorrow we're seeing that moisture moving in over the northern part and stronger chance of rainfall coming in over the central parts of the DRC as well as over Brazzaville. Do expect moisture along those parts to lead to partly cloudy skies. Kigali 25, Nairobi's at 27, 34 for Mombasa and Dar es Salaam at 33 degrees. Over North Africa, do expect partly cloudy skies in some areas towards Mecca over Saudi Arabia, and also Mecca reaching a maximum of 37, 33 for Riyadh, 20s for Baghdad, and we're seeing those lower 30s becoming upper 30s towards Tripoli. Hot weather is expected for much of West Africa and dry conditions coming in there. No chance of rainfall is expected. A bit of clouds are expected just along the southern part, along the coastal regions into Lagos over Nigeria, and then the rainy conditions coming up towards Lagos, Abidjan, and possibly into Conakry. Hot weather for Niamey and N'Djamena, including Bamako. Those are into the 40s, starting from 43 to about 46 degrees, and slightly cooler conditions for Rabat as well as over Algiers. And that stretch of the west coast, we're expecting possibilities of clouds, but warmer conditions will be returning along those parts. That's why I leave it for the weather. Do stay tuned. There should be more later.
News Today keeps you informed with news locally and around the world.
When Judge John Hlophe challenged the Supreme Court of Appeal when it sent the matter back and said that there must be an inquiry set up.
We unpack business news.
There's an increase in general inflation in the country.
We give you up-to-date news of the day.
The drugs were seized at several locations in Sydney, including a shipping container sent from Hong Kong. Police say it's the largest haul of illicit drugs in 2 years.
We round up sports news.
Kotata, tell me about the legacy that you would like to build and be remembered for.
Trying to get my foundation running, which is going to focus on, all the sport, doesn't matter disability or able body. So, I'm passionate about sports.
Stay informed every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m. CAT. SABC News.
In Bupilong, we celebrate those who take strides doing good and changing the world.
I really think that education has to be revisited, and it's an integral part of teaching young people skills of the future.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
I think that the treatment should be made available, actually, because it's costly. Growth hormones are very, very costly.
Where there is a challenge, we bring hope.
I'm alive. And the brain tumor is gone.
Join your host Buleng Mulabati every Friday at 17:30 for more uplifting stories. Our eyes are the window to the beautiful wonders of the world, but blindness enhances other senses. Technology has made living with blindness easy.
If you look on the side here, it's got like grooves in there. Yeah. So the first one after when it comes together will be 20 Rand, 50 Rand. And if I slide this in, I can see according to the grooves, it's now on 50 Rand.
To Steve Kekana, blindness was never a hindrance, but a blessing.
You got to know that you are the child of the universe, being blind, and you've got the right to be here.
Join your host, Dr. Sello Mutawun, every Saturday from 9 a.m.
A romantic adventure film starring Ivan Buerta and Donnelly Roberts. The story begins in the beautiful vineyards of Paarl in the Western Cape. The adventure takes off when the characters find themselves on the tropical island of Love, Mauritius.
Josephine's work is more interesting and distinguishable. She visits war-stricken zone countries to tell the story of the damage war often leaves behind.
This particular exhibition's case
places that are named after conflict or disaster or war or reconciliation.
And basically what it is it's a collection of the best animated short films from around the world this year. And the idea is to inspire animators and directors with this exciting content. And so that's been offered to us as a cinema, and we're very excited to be screening the animated show of shows here in South Africa.
Join Refulo Mula for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
It's Monday, the 18th of April 2016. This is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404. Jumbo Africa, and a warm welcome as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You also know that we are streaming live on YouTube. The entire show is available on our YouTube channel. Question that we pose to you today is the inclusion of mother tongue vernacular adverts a new beginning for black creatives in South Africa? Let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on our Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. The Transport Minister orders the RTMC to investigate the cause of the bus accident that killed 11 people in the Free State yesterday. The North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria sets the date for Oscar Pistorius' murder sentencing. And Brazilian lawmakers authorized the impeachment proceedings against President Dilma Rousseff, sparking claims that democracy is under threat in Latin America's biggest country. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning.
Elvis, good morning. It's Monday morning. It was one massive weekend. I almost came up with something that needed to be bleeped out, but it was fantastic stuff. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today. South Africa's Brendan Gray shoots a brilliant 500 par 66 to take his first ever US PGA Tour victory at the RBC Heritage.
That's going to do it. And this is why we just love sevens.
Kenya destroy favourites Fiji to win their first ever Cup final, running out 37 winners in Singapore. And a resurgent Rafael Nadal blitzes Gael Monfils in 3 sets to win his 9th Monte Carlo Masters. That is what we've got for you in the sports in about 20 minutes or so. Back to you, Elvis. Thank you, Kendall.
Top story this hour. The North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has announced that the Oscar Pistorius murder sentencing. Now, sentencing proceedings will start on the 13th of June 2016. This comes after the Constitutional Court dismissed the Paralympians' bid to have the murder conviction overturned. Last year, the Supreme Court of Appeal converted Pistorius' culpable homicide conviction to murder. Pistorius killed his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day in 2013. Let's now cross live back to our reporter Griselda Lewis, who is at the North Gauteng High Court. A very good morning once again to you, Griselda, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Elvis.
Can you give us the latest, what is happening there at court, Griselda?
Well, proceedings were expected to be very brief here this morning, and that's exactly what happened, Elvis. We saw Oscar Pistorius rush into the North Gauteng High Court, of course, under the glare of the world's media. The media attention that we saw here this morning is exactly what we saw throughout the trial, and of course officially read into the record there that the murder sentencing for Oscar Pistorius will take place between the 13th to the 17th of June. On the 17th of June, that's when we were expecting them to conclude this matter. What we also do now know is that Oscar Pistorius' bail conditions have been relaxed, that Oscar Pistorius will now be able to travel outside, 20 kilometers outside of his home, and that he will not need to ask for permission from correctional services. Instead, he would need to get permission from the investigating officer, Mike van Aert, now. So in terms of the relaxation of those bail conditions, that's what Oscar Pistorius would need to comply with. What we also heard from lawyers is that Oscar Pistorius is on his third tracking device at the moment. Apparently, it's been malfunctioning. That's the tracking device, of course, that he's been wearing on his wrist. And Judge Aubrey Ledwaba, of course, saying that's an issue that needs to be sorted out. But we saw massive support for Oscar Pistorius outside court this morning. We saw some supporters who say if they've travelled from around the globe, they signed a banner outside here indicating that the support for Oscar Pistorius is worldwide. They're saying that Oscar Pistorius never received a fair trial and that he was essentially tried by the media and that he was prejudiced. They say that the initial sentence that was meted out, the findings of Judge Thokozile Masipa of culpable homicide, is the correct one that Oscar Pistorius should serve, and they're saying that they're going to continue showing support for Oscar Pistorius outside. They say they're going to be outside this court once again once the sentencing proceedings get underway from the 13th to the 17th of June.
What was his demeanour like in court this morning, and was there family support for him in court, Griselda?
Well, that's right. After Oscar Pistorius walked inside the North Gauteng High Court, we saw his family members as well. Amy Pistorius, his sister, was also inside court. Of course, you'd know that she'd been showing massive support for her brother, as expected, since the very beginning of this matter, as well as his father, Henke Pistorius, was also in court this morning. We saw them hugging each other inside the court and really showing support for Oscar Pistorius. And I think everybody wanted to see Oscar Pistorius' reaction and how Oscar Pistorius is doing. Of course, you would know that he was admitted to a hospital. We got that confirmation from correctional services, but of course, no one is willing to say what exactly he was admitted to the Pretoria hospital for. But Oscar Pistorius sat in the dock here this morning with his head bowed down, and when he was asked to stand up by Judge Aubrey Ledwaba, he looked straight at him and basically agreed to Judge Ledwaba when the judge was, of course, telling him that he needs to be back at court on the date for the sentencing. And essentially, as he walked out of the court again, there was quite a media scrum again to get pictures of Oscar Pistorius. But of course, nobody willing to answer questions about what Oscar Pistorius' condition is and whether he is doing well.
Griselda, thank you so much for that update. That's our reporter on the scene, Griselda Lewis. Now, Czech fugitive Radovan Kriča and his 4 co-accused are expected to appear. In fact, they're appearing in the High Court in Johannesburg today on charges relating to the murder of the Lebanese national Sam Issa. We believe that it just started. We'll probably go there shortly. Now, Issa was gunned down in a drive-by the shooting incident in Bedford View, east of Johannesburg in 2013. Now, Kriča is currently facing 9 charges along with Siboniso Mia, Nkanyiso Mafunda, Simpiwe Mamela and Lebomir Grigorov. Kriča was sentenced in February to 35 years in prison for kidnapping, drug dealing and attempted murder. He is expected to apply for leave to appeal the conviction and sentence on Friday. Let's now cross live to the South Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg.
Number 2, Mamela number 3.
Just wait. Just wait.
These are the 5 accused in order.
Right, these are the 5 accused. Are they in order from my left to my right?
To your
1,
right.
2, 3, 4, 5.
That's correct, madam.
Yes. Accused may be seated.
As previously indicated, my lord, the did request, of course, with the blessing of the defense, that the matter be rolled over until Wednesday, the 20th of April, provisionally for the court to be arranged for trial. All 5 accused are in custody.
Thank you, my lord. I confirm the arrangement with respect to Benches 3 and 5. Likewise, my lord, on behalf of the accused number 4.
Will you tell the 5 accused that this matter cannot proceed today? And that a provisional date, when a date for the hearing will be announced, has been arranged as being Wednesday. That is Wednesday, the 20th of April, when they will be brought back to this court. And that on that date, the state and their legal advisors will have agreed a date and an arrangement will have been made when the trial will proceed. So when they come back to this court on Wednesday, the 20th of April, that date will be announced and the matter will further be remanded. In the interim, all the accused are to remain in custody. Right. So I make the following order by consent between the state and the legal representatives of each of the accused. The matter is remanded until 20th April 2016 in this court. All the accused are to remain in custody. Yes.
Nenkinga ukuthi ejele engihlala kulona bangixoshile ne-exercise angisayitholi nokudla ngisakuthola evisit bathe ngingabe ngisabuya.
Well, my lord, my problem is that the prison which I've been incarcerated, I've been now chased away and I've been told not to come back to that prison again. I'm not even allowed time to exercise, my lord.
Tell accused number 3 that he must raise whatever his problems are with his defense counsel and that the defense counsel will deal with it in due course.
Well, my lord, I'm unable to go back to Kruger's of prison because I've been told not to come back to Kruger's of prison again.
Well, I don't know who told you that, but my order overrides whoever
I won't be able to go there, and I'm not leaving this dock currently, my lord.
Well, I invite you to leave the dock, failing which there will be sanctions made against you. Tell him he must go. Right, so the accused may all leave the court. Counsel for accused 3, will you speak to your accused about the issue?
I believe the security issue is just an issue, my lord. I will go during the team.
Whenever you like.
One and four.
Accused number 1 and 4 minutes remaining. Wait.
Right. So now we don't you met Mr. Mashiani?
Indeed, my lord.
Right. Two accused may be seated while the other accused come.
We're live in court now with Critcher and murder co-accused in court from Johannesburg in Gauteng. Now, as you saw there, a very brief appearance with the 5 other co-accused that Critcher was. As you know, he's currently facing 9 charges along with Siboniso Mia, Nkanyuso Mafunda, Simpiwe Mamela and Layo Bemer Grigorov. Now, Critcher, as you know, was sentenced in February to 35 years in prison for kidnapping, drug dealing and attempted murder. Now, he is expected to apply for leave to appeal the conviction and sentence on Friday, but the judge has remanded this particular trial with the 5 co-accused to the 20th of April. That means on Wednesday morning, where the legal teams have agreed that they will then get together and decide on the due date for the trial to start. And as you see there, there's another case coming up right now, and we'll go back live to court. Well, it seems like they're still waiting for the other accused to come up from the bottom there. And as you can see, it was drama earlier on when the judge, accused number 3, indicated that they chased him out of his cell and he doesn't want to go back. He wants to stay in the dock. He's not going to leave the dock, he indicated. And the judge indicated to him that he should speak to his defense team and not to the judge about this matter. And there, of course, the drama unfolded, where eventually He left the dock, and right now Radovan Krejcir and the co-accused is waiting for the others to come up for the judge to take them through their paces there. As you know, this is the case of Radovan Krejcir and the murder accused, which is currently in court for the issues of drug dealing. There's also kidnapping and attempted murder. It's an ongoing case, and we're going to keep you posted as to what is happening there in court on a regular basis. We'll also try and find out from our reporter at court what is happening outside a little bit later, so you have to stay tuned. This is one of those cases that you don't want to miss. There's a lot more stories that we'll cover here, and we're also asking you a question in relation to advertising, a little bit on the lighter note today. Advertising and, of course, the black creatives, what it means for them, that they be included. All the vernacular adverts have now been included into the Pendurang Awards, which makes a great move there for advertising in the country, where indigenous languages are now being included. Let's go back live to court.
Yes, my lord, I've just sent some of the security personnel to make sure they hurry up.
Right. Now, while we wait for the judge to get ready for the next issue there on the court roll with Radovan Krejcir, let's continue with your news. The African National Congress says while it's happy with this past weekend's attendance at the launch of its election manifesto, there are still issues that they want to correct pertaining to the organization of such events in future.
The Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium, not overflowing as the ANC had hoped. Now the party threatens action.
Something must give, especially from those that have let us down, when everything that was in the checklist was ticked as having been done.
1,000 buses expected from this province, only 250 pitched. The host city also failed to live up to expectations. The fractured politics of the party here has also led to disbanding of the regional executive, but the party has dismissed suggestions that the poor attendance is due to ongoing internal battles.
I think it's ill-discipline. Sabotage will be too harsh a word, but from where I'm seated and the efforts that were made, particularly by people waking up early, being at the pick-up points, I think it is a disservice to the ANC.
As the province has to report back to Luthuli House, it faces another battle ahead of its list conference for the municipal election candidates.
In some instances, you do see that there could be elements who, either owing to being disgruntled at either of the levels, that there is a possibility for one to then opt to stand as independent. But we do not think that it's something that will be very much preponderant in our environment here.
Meanwhile, as the ANC consults its branches over the Constitutional Court ruling, the Eastern Cape leadership has made its position clear.
As far as we are concerned, let's continue with what we are doing. If at any other time the ANC arrives at that, it would have arrived at, but from where we are not at that point, and so the president should finish his term.
Nationally, while some have thrown their weight behind the president, others are calling for him to step down. Aldrin St-Pierre, SABC News, Port Elizabeth.
Let's now cross live back to the proceedings at the South Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg, which is sitting over the Radovan Krejcir case.
May it please the court, I still appear on behalf of accused 3, 4, 5 and 6.
The
4, 5, and 6.
All of them up to 6.
Up to 6. And I'm still instructed by Spanner Government.
Right. So,
My Lord, I understand that today is scheduled for application for leave to appeal. We are ready to proceed. I understand, however, that some of my colleagues are not ready to proceed. I wonder if your Lordship would like to hear them first.
let me hear them.
We are ready to proceed in principle, although we've been instructed to deal with certain special entries. In that regard, however, there's been an issue contacting the previous attorney of record to depose to an affidavit. I have, in the meantime, discussed the issue. I know Mr. Spannenberg is first going to deal with an application, or at some point, that we will fall last in queue in order to obtain this particular affidavit, and in the meantime, the rest of the accused can proceed with a leave to appeal.
So you just want to argue out of sequence?
I beg your pardon?
You want to argue out of sequence?
As the court pleases, my lord.
Yes.
With leave of the court, of course.
So, Spannenberg?
Lord, yes, I also wish to bring a application for leave to appeal. And coupled with that, and the Act says quite clearly, I wish to bring application for leading of further evidence. Actually, it's a. I bring it under that heading, although my submission will be at that stage when I argue that the evidence has already been admitted. I just seek an order that the evidence be admitted for purposes of leave to appeal and for appeal if leave were to be granted. But that application, in terms of the Act.
So you're not asking for leave to argue in some different sequence than the normal sequence? In other words, you'll argue whenever it is at the end, or subject to Ms. van der Neer for arguing after you?
I have no problem with that.
No, I'm asking you. It's a question, not a directive. What are you telling me is what I'm asking you.
What I'm saying is that when I argue leave to appeal, I will also argue the admission of further evidence.
Right. And should that issue, which you say is already dealt with, not cogently be argued as a first issue, because presumably if additional evidence is advanced or is admitted, or is already admitted, then the other accused will want to rely possibly on that evidence.
Yes.
Or at least, let me put it this way, the question of what the evidence is should be finalized before the leave to appeal be argued.
Yes, I think it's...
So does that not logically put your issue first? That issue?
I'm in the court's hands.
I'm asking you.
Yes.
It's a question.
Well, the Act says that at the time of bringing the
leave to appeal,
at that point in time, application should be brought for the leading of further evidence.
Right. So I don't hear anyone saying they want to argue after you. So you'll argue in your normal course?
I will argue in the normal course.
Right. So then, and you wish to argue, is it last or at least?
I would like to argue last, my lord.
Last. All right. And does everyone agree to Ms. van den Heefer's argument being out of sequence and last? It doesn't affect you, but it might affect you.
Not really.
It doesn't affect you. So you're agreeable to that sequence?
Yes.
So we'll run the trial, all the issues concerning 1, all the issues concerning 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the issues concerning 2.
Yes.
Everyone agreed to that procedure as far as the defense is concerned. Right, let me just hear from Mr. Mashiani. Mr. Mashiani, do you have any objection to that procedure being followed?
None.
So we'll run 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2.
That is so.
Okay, right. I received heads of argument, I think, from you.
That's correct, on Friday morning.
Right. Have the other counsel been given copies of your heads of argument?
Oh, they haven't, my lord. My learned friend, prosecutor, has.
Ms. Van Newton?
No, we've not received it.
And do you want to receive it?
I have received
You have now
I have
received
now received, my lord.
Okay. Right. So are we ready to proceed with one? Okay. Right. I hear one. This is an application for leave to appeal?
Correct, my lord.
Right.
Leave to appeal against the 3 convictions and the sentence, my lord.
Against all convictions and
all
all
convictions
sentence.
and sentence.
Right.
We will submit, my lord, that your lordship made errors of fact and law in respect of all 3 convictions and in respect of the sentence.
Yes.
Our argument is broken down effectively into 2 parts. First, procedural grounds, and secondly, substantive grounds. If I may commence by addressing your lordship on the procedural grounds, this again is split into 2. First,
Just that, they're procedural and substantive?
Yes, correct. Procedural grounds and substantive grounds.
And procedural is divided into 2?
Correct. Evidentiary.
As per the head?
Yes, correct.
So you intend proceeding through your head?
That's correct.
So I've read the heads. And
if
you
you
may carry on.
would prefer that I
procedural
am more brief, then
I'm not telling you what to do. You may do whatever you feel is proper.
Thank you.
I'm just telling you that I have read your
right. As you will note, that I have broken the procedural grounds
and
down.
I'm grateful to you for having prepared them in advance to enable me to prepare myself.
Thank you, my lord.
Right.
If I may, at this time, before I begin my evidence, hand up a case pack of authority. I've extracted from the cases the relevant pages only and highlighted only the relevant passages.
Thank you.
I've also furnished my learned friend, Mr. Marciani, with a copy of this. In respect of the procedural grounds, my lord, the first issue that I wish to address your lordship on is the standard of proof adopted by the court in convicting the accused. And if I may, my lord, I will be referring to the accused as accused number 1 as the accused, if I may continue to do so. I wish to address the court on the standard of proof adopted. It is our submission that the standard of proof adopted in convicting the accused on all 3 counts was far lower than what is required in a criminal case where proof beyond a reasonable doubt is required. A careful analysis of the findings of your lordship in respect of the convictions reveals that your lordship made 17 findings on the probabilities and a further 6 findings only beyond a reasonable doubt. Those findings beyond a reasonable doubt, my lord, are in turn reliant on your findings on the probabilities and are therefore also, unfortunately, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt. If I may read into the record the findings, the 17 findings on the probabilities.
They're the ones in 11.1.
They're the ones in 11.1, and your lordship may note that those that are underlined are the ones that are directly applicable or in some way relevant to accused 1.
Well, I've seen them. I understand what you're saying.
Right.
We have a different approach to the matter.
Yes.
My view is that the probabilities are relevant to the question of the determination of individual facts. You disagree with that, and I understand your submission.
Thank you, my lord. I will...
so you needn't, from my perspective,
yes,
go through each of these.
Right. If I may then, my lord, I will move on to the essential point of whether it is permissible to rely on mere probabilities in establishing anything beyond a reasonable doubt. Your lordship is, of course, correct that there are circumstances in which this is appropriate. You'll see that I've referred your lordship in footnote 28 to the case of R versus de Villiers.
Just wait.
Sure, that's page 12.
Yes.
footnote 28.
Yes.
The case of R versus de Villiers. It is my submission, and I concede, my Lord, that there are circumstances in which it is appropriate to rely on mere probabilities. However, this is only appropriate when dealing with circumstantial evidence, where the evidence that is being relied on is compatible with each other, and where the evidence being relied on forms alternative bases on which to find a particular fact proved. This would also, of course, trigger the requirements, because we would be dealing with circumstantial evidence of R versus de Blom, and it doesn't appear from your Lordship's judgment that the requirements of R versus de Blom were adhered with, nor does it appear with respect from your Lordship's judgment that your Lordship was engaging with these facts as probabilities in line with what is permissible arising out of the R versus de Villiers approach. In addition, my Lord, I also wish to point out, if I may just canvass the matters where your Lordship made findings specifically beyond a reasonable doubt. Your Lordship found that Lukele identified accused one as the person who poured hot water on him.
Yes, well, you've set them all out in paragraph 14. Yes, I see them.
Sorry, it's important for my argument, my Lord, and also that accused one was mastermind in the proposed exportation of the drugs. I wish to draw attention to the fact that while your Lordship relies on Lukele as a reliable and as a reliable witness, your Lordship does not, in fact, accept all of his evidence. There is a point in the evidence of Lukele in the record at page 533, lines 18 to 19, where Lukele testifies that he was stabbed. Your Lordship doesn't accept that point, and therefore it appears that your Lordship does not accept all of the evidence of Lukele. In addition, the identification by Lukele was a dock identification, to which I will return later. This, I will argue, ought to have been excluded from the evidence entirely. In addition, your Lordship, while at paragraph 30 and 36 of your Lordship's judgment, you do express the view that you are prepared to rely on the evidence of Lukele as proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Subsequently, my Lord, at paragraph 44, you express the view that you only take his evidence to be true on the balance of probabilities, or on the probabilities. These two, my Lord, are of course inconsistent, and at that level of confidence it's inappropriate. That level of confidence is inappropriate in a criminal trial. It of course leaves the real possibility of a reasonable possibility that Lukele may well have been wrong. Furthermore, in respect of your Lordship's finding that it was proved beyond a reasonable doubt that accused number one was the mastermind controlling and in charge of the plans to export the drugs, this finding follows only on citing the relevant section, and the only other evidence or argument or finding in your Lordship's judgment to this effect is another finding on the probabilities to be found at paragraph 64, your Lordship. And so ultimately it appears that there is no link or no basis on which to elevate that finding, which originally is expressed in terms of the probabilities, to one beyond a reasonable doubt. Again, it appears that there's only probabilities behind that finding. Your Lordship, I also wish to indicate that right at the end of Your Lordship's judgment at paragraph 126, Your Lordship indicates that Your Lordship's view of all of the events that took place was arrived at on the probabilities only. This, of course, would translate into an inadequate certainty for convictions on the criminal onus. And finally, Your Lordship, even if it had been proved on or beyond a reasonable doubt that every single requirement of criminal liability was in fact proved, Your Lordship was required then to apply the product rule to those probabilities, which is what is required whenever the coexistence of any two facts must be calculated. This has now been accepted in the case of S versus SB, 2014. I've referred to it in footnote 42. This is the proper method for calculating the statistical probability of the coexistence of any two facts. The reason why this would be applicable, my Lord, is because in the case of criminal convictions, one is required to establish that all of the requirements coexisted at exactly the same time. The effect of that is to drive down the ultimate probability of guilt. I don't know if Your Lordship wishes me to address you on the product rule. It is somewhat of a statistical nightmare.
I understand it.
Okay.
I also understand it in the context of other evidence where accused come before me and say that because there's a 0.1% chance, therefore they fall in the 0.1% category. It's that theory, isn't it?
Respectfully, it's not, my Lord. I suppose the best example of it would be if one were to imagine a roulette wheel where the probabilities of the ball falling on red or black is 50%, the probabilities of the ball falling on even or odd numbers is 50%. It reduces ultimately, if you insist on red even, the probabilities of that happening is only 25%. So it's that astounding effect that we're asking the court to consider.
Yes, but when I look at it, I must look at the entirety of the sets of facts which I find and say if the sets of facts lead me to conclude X, then X is the answer.
The conclusion to which it drives, my Lord, I wish to submit, is in fact that all and each of the requirements for criminal liability must in fact be established at a higher standard of proof than merely the proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Because once you apply the product rule to the requirements, because of the effect of reducing the overall probability, in order for the overall probability...
Half times a half is a quarter. I understand the principle.
Yes, right. As court pleases. In respect of identification, Your Lordship was...
You're now on the separate, on a different tack.
Yes.
This is the doc defence.
Sorry.
The doc
identification. That's correct, Your Lordship. Beginning at paragraph 19, where I begin my argument and acknowledge that Your Lordship did take account of the dangers of relying on a doc identification. It would appear, however, that Your Lordship's view in respect of the dangers posed by doc identification relate to whether the witness properly identified the accused on the previous occasion. I submit that the dangers of doc identification, as is set out in the various authorities that I've cited, relate not to the identification by the witness at the previous occasion, but of identification by the witness in court on the occasion of the trial.
Yes, well, there's a suggestion because he's the accused. Is this the man who hurt you? Yes, of course he's the man. That's the problem.
Correct. That is my submission.
Now, if there are other people that say it is the man, then that problem is overcome.
Unless, of course, my Lord, I wish to submit each of those witnesses only submit a doc identification.
And if I know you from before, and I have no problem, I don't have this problem of not knowing who you are. I know who you are. And now
Again,
identify you.
the question, my lord, is not whether the witness knows the particular accused. The question is whether in court it should be considered permissible by virtue of the fact that there's every indication and every suggestion that you are, as the witness, required to identify whoever is standing in the dock.
Yes, that's the objection.
Yes.
But if I know you from before, that objection falls away largely, unless I've got a hidden agenda. If I know you, the problem with the dock identification, I didn't really recognize you. They put you in the dock, and now I say it's you, even although I still don't really recognize you. That's the problem.
Correct, Your Lord. That
now,
is
if
the
I know
submission.
you, I know you very well.
Yes.
And now they put you in the dock. The only suggestion is that it's the person who did the act.
Correct, Your Lord.
So it's not an identification issue. It's a question of complicity.
Even at a subconscious level is what is the submission that I would make.
I'm hearing
by
you.
virtue of the suggestions.
I'm hearing you.
Thank you.
As long as we understand each other.
Yes, thank you, my lord.
So that's the dock ID.
That's the dock identification, and furthermore, I also need to add to that the identification and the probabilities, or at least the certainty attached to the witness of Bukele by your lordship at paragraph, ultimately at paragraph 4, was only on the probabilities. It's important, I would submit, to bear that in mind.
Yes, but I don't convict on the basis of Bukele only.
That is correct.
Yes.
If I may then turn to...
I say that his evidence appears probably to be correct in the certain respects that I deal with it.
Yes.
On the probabilities,
Yes.
the probabilities favour his version.
Correct.
That's the point.
Correct, but that unfortunately...
And therefore,
yes.
it's not the test to find a conviction,
Yes.
but it's relevant to finding a fact.
It appears from your lordship's judgment, I would submit, that is the extent of certainty
Yes.
that you're left with. And when you combine that with the degree of certainty you express in respect of all of the facts at paragraph 126, you also indicate there only a degree of certainty on the probabilities, which is unfortunately inadequate in a criminal trial, I submit.
Yes.
If I turn then, my lord, on page 20 to the evaluation of conflicting evidence, it would appear that there was...
Just wait.
Sorry, that's at paragraph 28.
No, I just want to make a note.
Right.
Yeah.
Your lordship, it would appear that there was conflicting evidence, at least between the evidence proffered by the accused himself and several state witnesses to an extent, and that this required an analysis in terms of the prevailing authority in our law for dealing and resolving conflictual evidence. That standard is dictated by the case of Stellenbosch Farmers Winery. My lord, if I may draw your attention to the regrettable mistake I made in citing that case.
It's a well-known case, I know.
Yes, 2012.
Don't worry.
Apologies, it is in your pack.
Don't worry.
I wish to submit that the failure to engage and analyse these conflicting evidence, the conflicting versions, failed the prevailing authority. Furthermore, your lordship dismisses the testimony of the accused as to the possibility of a conspiracy or collusion on the basis that there was no evidence. I respectfully submit that this is not the case.
What was the evidence?
There was evidence, at least by the accused, which raised, I accept and concede,
based
only
on no facts.
It raised at least a possibility.
Well, what's the possibility got to do with
It
this
required, in turn, that your lordship engage with it and consider whether there was whether it amounted to a reasonable possibility, which your lordship respectfully failed to do.
Yeah. I hear you.
My lordship, if I may then turn on to the second leg of the procedural grounds, fair trial rights.
Fair trial.
Beginning at page 22.
Yeah.
Given that your lordship has had an opportunity to read the heads, I'll be...
Well, the physical restraints, that's the one thing you raised? During the trial, was he restrained? Was he restrained during the trial?
My understanding is that he was restrained at least during the sentencing, my lordship.
Well, what's that got to do with the conviction?
Point conceded, your lord.
Okay.
It was, however, most problematic during sentencing, and in particular because he was representing himself.
How would it make it worse?
I understand, Your Lordship, that he had trouble moving and complained.
How would it make it worse from my point of view that I would want to punish him more because he's restrained? I'd say, you're restrained, you must get a heavier punishment.
The authorities seem to indicate that it leads to the suggestion of dangerousness on behalf of the accused person, who at that point you would be correct in saying was convicted, and your dangerousness is of course a relevant concern. In sentencing, we would submit that it could have influenced Your Lordship in that respect.
Okay, I understand.
If I may then move on to the issue of consultation with legal representatives. In this respect, Your Lordship...
with regard to conviction or sentence?
With regard in particular to sentence.
Well, you must choose.
It was sentence.
A or B?
Apologies, my Lord.
Sentence.
Sentence.
Yeah.
The time,
Consulting.
there were time limits placed on consultations.
My recollection of his statement of fact before me was that he had met 4 times with someone who was going to give him a report on sentence and spent some 100 hours with him.
I understand that's a witness, my Lord.
Well, that's him. He said that during that period you've been able to do this. So if during that period he could do that, why couldn't he speak to his representative during that period? He could. He said, I just have an intellectual problem with that.
I concede. I do wish to, however, bring to the court's attention...
Anyway, I've read this, I understand it.
All right. And then perhaps, as the court pleases, I should move on to the adduction of evidence. The adducing of evidence.
Adducing of evidence.
Page 25.
I'm there.
Here in particular, I wish to draw to the court's attention the duty that falls on the court in respect of an unrepresented accused person, and also that a duty falls on the state to assist an accused person in order to produce their witnesses. My understanding was that this support and assistance was not given the accused in the sentencing. May I proceed?
Yes.
If I can now turn on page 26 to the substantive grounds.
Good as well.
I'll deal in turn with each of them in order of conviction. Dealing in drugs. Your Lordship correctly identified from the section, and also the fact that in order to be convicted of dealing in drugs, it must be proved against an accused that the substance that the accused intended or attempted to deal in was indeed the substance that was dealt in or attempted to be dealt in. However, my Lord, it raises the problem that in the absence of intention in respect of this particular substance, there can be no fault as required to extend to the element of the particular substance.
I don't understand.
The fact, as Your Lordship recognizes, that the substance in question must be the substance which the accused intended to deal in. So if the accused believes it was methamphetamine, it must be methamphetamine, and the state must prove this against the accused. It's elevated to an element of the crime. As such, and on the basis that our criminal law requires that intention or fault must extend to every element of the criminal offence, intention must have extended to the fact of it being methamphetamine.
Prohibited.
Not simply a prohibited substance. Our submission is that intention must have extended to it being that particular substance, methamphetamine, my Lord. And Your Lordship...
Well, they're not separate issues. The first issue is that he knew that it was the drug.
That is correct, my Lord. I'm taking the second issue.
And now he dealt in the drug.
Yes.
Now you say the fault issue. He
fault
must know
issue.
that it's the drug.
Correct. And
Yes.
in respect of that, my Lord, in your judgment at paragraph 107, you indicate that in fact he had no knowledge of that drug, you do make recourse to dolus eventualis in the
I'll
circumstances.
say there was no proof that it was that drug directly admissible against him.
Yes. To quote your Lordship, accused number one, knowledge is limited to the bags containing a prohibited drug, and that is all that may be admissible against him. That is correct, your Lordship. It was not proved by the state against him. The problem arises,
From
however...
that, now the question is,
Did
where
he
do we
know?
go from there?
Yes. The difficulty, of course, which arises is that his knowledge must extend to what the drug is. And given that the state couldn't prove it, we are left with the...
The state proved there was a drug, particular drug, on my judgment.
Yes, but that he didn't know it. The only question as
No, that it wasn't proved that he knew what it was directly.
Yes, you do resort then to dolus eventualis. I wish to address your Lordship on... I wish to address your Lordship on your on resorting to dolus eventualis. You do resort to finding that by resorting to dolus eventualis, it could be found that the accused may have known that it may be that substance with which the accused is charged. I respectfully submit that this is an improper use of the doctrine of dolus eventualis.
I'm not sure I do that. I say if he's participating in an activity which involves that particular drug, but because of the particular mechanism by which evidence is admissible against him, excluding that directly.
Yes.
Therefore, the question is it proven that he participated in it as an attempt? If he intended to deal in that drug,
yes,
which the other objective facts show,
yes,
but it's not proven that it was exactly that drug in that bag,
yes,
then it's an attempt.
I will come to the issue of attempt if I may in a moment, or unless you wish me to address you on that.
Isn't that what the issue is?
I think we can separate them out and deal with the issue of intention to commit the offence. Thank you, Your Lordship. I would submit that it would be the question, the appropriate question, if one was to resort to asking dolus whether there was dolus eventualis, would be.
I don't think it's a dolus eventualis issue. Anyway, I'm hearing you.
Your Lordship does refer to dolus eventualis at page 108 in your judgment, and I would argue that would be improper. But if I may then turn to what does seem to be an issue, whether it would have been appropriate to have convicted him of an attempt at the impossible here, it does seem from your Lordship's judgment that your Lordship treated this as an attempt to commit the factually impossible. I would submit that given that the substance was unknown to the accused, and on the basis that it is an element of the offence that the particular drug must be known to the accused, that this is in fact a charge of attempting to deal in an unknown substance, which is not a criminal offence in South African law, and would therefore render this an attempt at the legally impossible, which is not punishable under our law.
I understand the argument.
Thank you, my Lord.
The same argument we had at the trial.
I don't know if there's anything in particular there that you would like me to address you on in respect of that issue. I do see that your Lordship relied on the judgment in the Ndlovu case, saying that in that case a conviction was handed down on a similar provision. I respectfully submit that that case is inapplicable. It was concerned instead with whether an attempt was appropriate for circumstance crimes, and didn't deal with impossibility in the same sense as is understood in the case of Davies, where, for instance, there was the question of whether it's possible to attempt to kill a fetus which is already dead. I don't know if this carries anything further, or if your Lordship has any question. Okay, I'll move on. On kidnapping, your Lordship, it would appear that despite the requirements of kidnapping requiring at least intentionally depriving another of his or her freedom, that your Lordship didn't in Your Lordship's judgment indicate the conduct element nor the intention on behalf of the accused to commit this crime. It is therefore not clear on what basis Your Lordship could have convicted the accused of this offence. One further point does require to be made in respect of this, and it would also be applicable to the attempted murder charge, which is that if Your Lordship was indeed relying on some form of attribution of conduct, this is of course not in my head, at least not in respect of attempted murder. If Your Lordship was relying on a form of attribution, excuse me, my Lordship, if I may just have a sip of water. If Your Lordship was relying on a form of attribution such as agency or common purpose, it would trigger the requirement set out in S versus de Blom 1977 Appellate Division, where it would be required of the state to prove that the accused knew that by that conduct, through others, he may be held to be criminally liable. And there was no attempt on behalf of my learned friend to do so. Shall I proceed? In respect of the conviction of attempted murder, again, Your Lordship, I wish to submit that Your Lordship failed to identify the conduct by which the accused committed attempted murder, and furthermore failed to identify the required fault requirement in the form of intention, and that indeed...
If he was the person pouring the boiling water over the person who was kidnapped,
my Lord, it appears from the
would
judgment
that be lawful?
there's...
Would there be any doubt that it's unlawful?
I don't believe this is a question of unlawfulness, my Lord. It's a question of intention.
Is there any doubt that if you pour hot water over someone's head, you intend
to kill them? I submit there absolutely is.
You submit that?
I submit there must be reasonable doubt at the very least as to your intention to kill that person. I think we're in agreement then.
We're not.
Well, at least we understand. At least we understand each other's arguments, if I may submit, my Lord. On sentence, Your Lordship, my Lord, apologies. Very brief points. I submit that Your Lordship, for the reasons that I've indicated earlier, failed to hear the accused's evidence and failed to take account of the differences in personal circumstances and the gravity of the various offences, and therefore arrived at a sentence which in another court would be regarded, I submit, as shockingly inappropriate. And that in another court, even if the convictions were confirmed, we submit that another court would indeed impose a far lighter sentence. In conclusion, my Lord, we submit therefore, I won't cover the ground on the sentence again, but in respect of all of the arguments on the convictions, we submit for those reasons that the accused enjoys a reasonable prospect of success on appeal, and we ask for leave to appeal on the convictions and sentence.
Thank you.
Thank you. As please.
Thank you, Lord. If I may deal first with the accused application in terms of section 316, 5 and 6. That's for dealing with the further evidence. Lord,
316, 5 and 316, 6.
6, indeed, sir. Lord, I have an affidavit, notice of motion affidavit as required in the Act, as well as short argument. I'm going to hand it up.
Thank you. Yes. Have you seen this affidavit? Have all the other councils seen the affidavit and the document? Do you want to see them? Well, perhaps you should.
We would appreciate that.
Yeah, perhaps you could.
You see if I have a spare.
Okay.
Lord, the further evidence is contained in exhibits SP 10 and SP 11. These are the
issues in paragraph 8.
Well, I
mean, that's from reading your affidavit.
Yes, yes. I deal with the whole of the affidavit.
But that's the nub of it.
Yes.
Yes. So what, he was not sure of the roles? They were all wearing jackets with hats, covering their heads. It was night and the lights were not on. And Moffat King, number 6, showed him an SAPS ID card. Those are the points?
Yes. It's in the reports. My Lord, these reports came at issue, or in issue, at sentencing stage, where the state wanted to hand in, particularly the victim impact report. An agreement was reached between the state and accused, in fact all the accused, but in particular accused 3 to 6, that these reports can be handed in. And the words being used, and I think my learned friend for the state still confirmed the admission, that the evidence is factually correct and the acceptance of the opinions therein contained.
Well, it's what I traditionally ask everyone, because do you accept the facts, do you accept opinions, and do you accept that the opinions are apposite?
Yes.
Because those are the requirements for the opinions.
Now these
but it obviously dealt it, and this is my understanding, this is where there seems to be some other issue. Did those admissions not deal with the personal circumstances which were being presented, or did it cover all facts?
All facts,
All facts.
Certainly my intention would.
Well, your intention, but I don't know if that was the state's intention.
Well,
that's the first question. Did the state intend to admit? And the second question is it binding on me? The admission.
That's my argument before you at this point,
Right.
My first submission is that
is the admission in sentence binding on me in relation to conviction, where I've already found facts. So if I find a set of facts and there's already evidence, what's the effect of this admission, which, let's assume, contains contrary facts?
As I understand the Act, my Lord, may I just make the first submission that this evidence is already evidence before you, Your Lordship.
Yes.
It's not to be admitted in terms of Section 316, but be it as may. What Your Lordship, as I gather from the Act, is now, with respect, obliged to do, is to consider this new evidence, and for purpose of appeal, if appeal does arise, for purpose of appeal, set out your finding as to whether this is really material, to what effect it affects the conviction, to what extent it affects the conviction.
So what must I find? To what extent?
It affects the conviction.
To what extent do these facts affect the conviction?
Indeed, sir, Lord.
And then, if I find it has some effect, if I find it has no effect, well, that's not a problem. If I find it has an effect, then what do I have to do?
It is then that finding of yours is part of your judgment, which will be then dealt with on appeal.
So it's not a question of reopening the trial.
No, my Lord. There was the old approach.
That's my understanding of 316. I then have to go and rehear the trial.
No. What your Lordship, the evidence before your Lordship,
Isn't that what the section says itself?
It's not a matter of reopening a trial. It's the matter of introducing the evidence into the record for purposes of appeal. Your Lordship cannot change your judgment.
I can, so I understand the authorities.
Well, that's the old authority. I think after there's appeal court decision in my head which deals with that.
Where's the words? Did I get them?
I think it's...
Just wait. Q's 3, 4, and 6. Are in the heads you've given me now?
Yes.
Let me just look at it, because I haven't read them. Just wait. In your heads now, paragraph?
My Lord... Paragraph 24, my lord.
24. Just right.
That was
just right. Yeah. Just this is a different issue. Which judgment do you say is the one that says that I don't have to reopen and hear the whole case again?
I think it was suggested in Fisher, my lord.
In Fisher?
Yes.
What weight do you suggest I should apply to what is patently a hearsay statement, untested? One doesn't know the circumstances in which it was given. I'm just raising these issues.
Well, my lord.
In relation to actual evidence, which I heard, flesh and blood witnesses, and where decisions are made. So how do I treat this? They're assuming that it's conflicting.
As you treat any other admission, my lord. Or
so how do I test it?
As you test any other admission, my lord. It's there. The state and the defence has made an admission. The Act has since changed the...
Not in relation to the conviction.
Yes, my lord. There's facts before you. There's an admission in regard to the factual content of those statements.
Yes, in relation to the sentence.
No, yes,
Well, it was obviously in relation to sentence, not in relation to conviction. That's why I'm raising with you...
But it also relates to conviction, my lord.
Well, I don't know. That's why I'm raising with you the extent of the admission.
It is there, my lord. The
well,
only
no,
problem
you can't say it's there. I need to understand. I need to understand the ambit of what was agreed, because it may be. Well, I'll hear from Mr. Mashiani.
Yes,
what
my lord.
Anyway, I understand all these points.
It's also in terms of the hearsay evidence. It's admission in terms of the hearsay.
You say it doesn't matter where it comes from. It's admitted.
It's admission. Yes. But in terms of the
I
hearsay,
don't even need to have an evidence.
Yes.
I could just have an admission.
Yes.
Yes. No, I understand exactly what you're saying.
One can deal with that in terms of section 220. You can deal with it in terms of section.
Anyway, I'm hearing 3A. 220, but isn't 220? I'm not sure you can. That's a different issue. But what does 220 relate to? Is it admissions? An admission that one piece of a trial affects another piece. You know, with extenuating circumstances.
Yes.
An admission in the extenuating circumstances can't be used to backtrack onto the conviction.
No, my lord. You mean the old?
Yes, on the old system.
Our courts are. Van Wyck's decision is quite clear. It's quite interesting. Moy is a distinction, because Moy deals with an admission made by an accused during extenuation.
Yes.
And I submit that it will appear...
Which was prejudicial to him.
Yes.
Now that you don't take into account.
Because of his right not to incriminate himself. I think.
But now he incriminates himself voluntarily. I don't know.
No, but this is something...
Does it say that? I don't think it says that.
Well, it seems that Van Wyck deals within that...
Van Wyck.
It's a full bench decision. I can hand you up
just
the...
There will be useful. The merit in looking back on the appeal at the evidence as a whole, which includes the conviction.
Yes.
Well, I don't know, but I'll have a look. Let me have a look at it.
The two matters is Van Wyck and Moy.
And Moy. Well, Moy is against you.
Not really, my lord, I suppose. No. Moy deals with an accused who incriminates himself.
Okay.
And it seems like Van Wyck does deal with the Moy situation, because it says it actually refers to... It must be considered whether the accused is incriminating himself before this can be admitted. But Van Wyck deals with logic and says it will be logic and prudent to look back at the whole matter on appeal. In dealing with the matter on appeal, you look back at the whole of the evidence.
Assume the accused came and he said something later. I couldn't use that to convict him. I couldn't say this corroborates my view of your conviction.
No. Now, it can only be dealt with on appeal.
Yeah.
The Court of Appeal can say, well, we have this further evidence which was not dealt with by the trial court.
Now, On the issue of further evidence, the evidence has to be cogent, it has to be definitive of a fact, it has to be dispositive of an issue, it has to be apparent that it's not pinching the shoe, not a case of producing evidence that pinches the shoe, all these things.
Well, it has to be dealt with as evidence as usual, my lord. It's no,
It's the question of the admissibility of it.
Well,
whether you admit it. You say it's admitted.
Yes, my lord.
In the conviction.
It's admitted as evidence. What I'm asking for, my lord, is that be considered as part of the evidence on the application for leave to appeal, and that it will be considered.
No, I understand that.
Yes.
But how you get there is a different issue.
My lord, it's there by admission of hearsay evidence. The parties agreed.
On what point was an issue? When you reach an agreement to admissibility, you reach an agreement to admissibility on issues that are before the court at that time. At that time, that wasn't an issue before me.
The report was an issue, my lord.
No,
the report is before you.
No,
we
the
admitted that the whole of the report can be handed in as evidence before your lordship.
I understand the submission. I'm hearing you.
My lord, I don't want to argue my learned friend's case, but if he wants to withdraw admission, then he must do so. And we know the evidence.
He'll come and give me his complaints or otherwise.
But my submission is it's there. It doesn't need to be dealt with in terms of section.
Did you say to him pertinently at the time of the agreement, listen here, I'm going to say that once these points are admitted, if you intend admitting them, that this means that your case is, let's call it just for shorthand, rubbish on those points.
There's even case law. If accused makes an admission which is partly to his benefit, and the state just stands by and accepts it, it's a waiver. There's a case matter there that says the accused.
Well, there are other cases that say that where there's disputes about what the facts are, I mean, assuming that there are these disputes, that you need to have them dealt with at the time of the admission. So, in other words, people need to know what the ambit of the admission is.
The Lord of the accused makes confession. He gives or relates a certain occurrence.
No,
he admits his guilt. It's a fait accompli once it's before your lordship. He can't come back later and say, I made a mistake, which often accused would like to do. But that's not in his hands. He must.
No, but it's the legal representative. It's not the witnesses that's making the admission. It's Mr. Mashiani.
Yes.
So let's assume he's half asleep and he doesn't read that section, that word. Is he bound by it?
But
do you intend him to be bound by it? That's the question. Yes.
He made the admission.
Understand.
And he has to apply to withdraw the admission. I'm
not sure he has, because I'm not sure that that's an issue. But we'll come there.
My lord, but we're missing another point here. It's the truth, my lord.
The truth.
The truth.
The truth.
Being what? Being two opinionated people saying that Lukele said, now turns around and says, accused Six is the one who showed the ID document. He's the one who was there. We're dealing with it. Should we just deal with the truth? With a statement by two independent people. It's not a matter of, we're not playing a game.
It's like these assessors' reports, where they come and describe the action, and they're only there to deal with the car that's broken. Now they gratuitously describe the collision.
Yes.
Now, if you admit that, it's obvious that they intend, in my view, potentially obvious, that they intend to deal with whether the car's broken, not how the collision occurred.
No, my lord, but both these witnesses intended to get a statement of the occurrences on that night from this witness.
Well, why didn't they get a proper statement, a bigger, longer?
They are proper, my lord. Lukele's statement is 2 pages in detail, which, interesting enough, is factually the same as his evidence, except for one point. He now points accused number 6 as the person.
As the ID of, as the producer of the document.
Yes, my lord. Yes.
Okay. I hear all that.
Lord, so my submission is, it's the evidence is before you. It's not that at this stage I'm applying for evidence to be brought to court. It's before you. It's not in strictly a 316 application.
Okay.
And
So it's
as long as that admission stands, it's before you.
Right.
And you must deal with the weight of these statements.
Yes.
And that is required of you respect to deal with it in your judgment and indicate to the Court of Appeal what weight you attach to it.
Only if I'm going to allow more evidence led. But if you, as you say, it's already before me, I don't have to do that.
It is. I seek an order, my lord, a declarator, so to speak.
No declarators. You're not entitled to declarators.
Well, my lord, then.
You're entitled to what the section says, which it says, if I'm going to admit it, I have to do things.
No, but my lord,
if it's already before
in terms,
me,
if it's not new evidence in terms of section 316, I say this evidence.
Well, in other words, you want some relief. Which section entitles you to?
No, I want an order that your lordship finds that this is evidence before you.
Well, what gives you that right to demand that?
My lord,
what section gives you that right to demand that relief? You can't just come to court and say you want something.
No, because I'm going to argue to your lordship that this is evidence which you should consider.
Well, that you can argue.
Fine. As a good basis.
But you're not entitled to an order from me that it's X, Y, or Z.
Lord, I have the difficulty in arguing leave to appeal without knowing what your order is concerning this evidence.
Well, that's your difficulty, not my difficulty.
Well, I beg you to assist me, my lord.
No. I follow the rules and the law, and if you point to the law, then I'll make orders in accordance with the law. I don't pro tem see such a law entitling you to declarative.
Well, perhaps, Lord, my approach is that we deal with this issue before I deal with my application for leave to appeal.
This issue. So you want Mr. Mashiani to argue the matter? Why should he argue? Why shouldn't you argue your whole case on the pleading over and arguing over concept? I think you have to. I think you must argue your whole case, get finished, and we'll hear Ms. van den Heever, then we'll hear Mr. Mashiani.
May I do so after tea, Lord?
Is it tea time?
Yes.
Yes, court adjourned.
All right.
The accused must go down.
Now that was the proceedings at the Radovan Kretcher court case. We'll probably go back there after tea time. It's now a tea break. Now, let's take a quick break and we'll be back after that.
Hindu devotees took a holy dip at Sangam, the confluence of rivers Ganges. People and priests made their way to the banks before the break of dawn. Security arrangements were in place for police forces patrolling on the river banks to ensure smooth functioning of the event.
A mobile museum in India's West Mumbai is highlighting the skills and creativity of residents of one of Asia's largest slums.
That's what we've been doing here, is creating this platform, and we came here to help it develop and to, just build it up.
In Bupilong, we celebrate those who take strides doing good and changing the world.
I really think that education has to be revisited, and it's an integral part of teaching young people skills of the future.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
I think that the treatment should be made available, actually, because it's costly. Growth hormones are very, very costly.
Where there is a challenge, we bring hope.
I'm alive.
and the punch has gone.
Join your host Buleng Mulabati every Friday at 17:30 for more uplifting stories.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News Channel.
Oscar Pistorius will know his fate on the 13th of June for the sentencing of Oscar Pistorius of River Steenkamp's murder. Now, this comes after the Constitutional Court dismissed the Paralympians' bid to have the murder conviction overturned. As you see there, he's in court this morning, and of course he will know his fate on the 13th of June. Czech fugitive Radovan Kricha and his 4 co-accused are appearing in the High Court in Johannesburg on charges relating to the murder of the Lebanese national Sam Issa. And Brazilian lawmakers authorize impeachment proceedings against President Dilma Rousseff, sparking claims that democracy is under threat in Latin America's biggest country. Those are your headlines. Top story now. Czech fugitive Radovan Kricha and his 4 co-accused are currently appearing in the High Court in Johannesburg on charges relating to the murder of the Lebanese national Sam Issa. Court is adjourned for tea, but they will be back. As you know, that Issa was gunned down in a drive-by shooting incident in Bedford View, east of Johannesburg in 2013. Kricha is currently facing 9 charges, along with Siboniso Mia, Nkanyiso Mafunda, Simpiwe Mamela and Libomir Gregorov. Kricha was sentenced in February to 35 years in prison for kidnapping, drug dealing and attempted murder. He's expected to apply for leave to appeal the conviction and sentence on Friday. Meanwhile, Radovan Kricha's lawyers say that the court has failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt that their client is guilty. The Czech fugitive, Kricha, and his 4 co-accused are currently appearing in the High Court in Johannesburg on those charges relating to the murder of the Lebanese national Sam Issa.
I wish to address the court on the standard of proof adopted. It is our submission that the standard of proof adopted in convicting the accused on all 3 counts was far lower than what is required in a criminal case where proof beyond a reasonable doubt is required. A careful analysis of the findings of your Lordship in respect of the convictions reveals that your Lordship made 17 findings on the probabilities and a further 6 findings only beyond a reasonable doubt. Those findings beyond a reasonable doubt, my Lord, are in turn reliant on your findings on the probabilities and are therefore also, unfortunately, not proof beyond a reasonable doubt.
The defense team went on to say that the court is dealing with circumstantial evidence. They say they pointed out that not all evidence from one of the key witnesses was considered.
It is my submission, and I concede, my Lord, that there are circumstances in which it is appropriate to rely on mere probabilities. However, this is only appropriate when dealing with circumstantial evidence, where the evidence that is being relied on is compatible with each other and where the evidence being relied on forms alternative bases on which to find a particular fact proved. This would also, of course, trigger the requirements, because we would be dealing with circumstantial evidence of R versus de Blom, and it doesn't appear from your Lordship's judgment that the requirements of R versus de Blom were adhered with, nor does it appear with respect from your Lordship's judgment that your Lordship was engaging with these facts as probabilities in line with what is permissible arising out of the R versus de Villiers approach. In addition, my Lord, I also wish to point out, if I may just canvass the matters where your Lordship made findings specifically beyond a reasonable doubt. Your Lordship found that Lukele identified accused one as the person who poured hot water on him.
Yes, well, you've set them all out in paragraph 14. Yes, now I see them.
Sorry, it's important for my argument, my Lord, and also that accused one was mastermind in the proposed exportation of the drugs. I wish to draw attention to the fact that while your Lordship relies on Lukele as a reliable and as a reliable witness, your Lordship does not, in fact, accept all of his evidence. There is a point in the evidence of Lukele in the record at page 533, lines 18 to 19, where Lukele testifies that he was stabbed. Your Lordship doesn't accept that point, and therefore it appears that your Lordship does not accept all of the evidence of Lukele.
Meanwhile, the North Gauteng High Court in Pretoria has announced that the Oscar Pistorius' murder, pronounced on the Oscar Pistorius murder sentencing. Those proceedings will start on the 13th of June 2016. This comes after the Constitutional Court dismissed the Paralympians' bid to have the murder conviction overturned. Last year, the Supreme Court of Appeal converted Pistorius' culpable homicide conviction to murder. Pistorius killed his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp on Valentine's Day in 2013.
Your matter is postponed to the 13th of June 2016, and it will be heard until the 17th of June 2016. Do you understand? Do you understand?
News from abroad now. Brazilian lawmakers authorize impeachment proceedings against President Dilma Rousseff, sparking claims that democracy was under threat in Latin America's biggest country. Opposition deputies in the lower house of Congress needed 342 of the 513 votes, or a two-thirds majority, to send Rousseff to the Senate, which will now decide whether to open a trial. While cheering and a burst of confetti erupted from opposition ranks at the 342nd vote counted by the furious jeering from Rousseff allies. Presidential Chief of Staff Jacques Wagner accused deputies of voting for impeachment without proving that the president, who is accused of illegally manipulating budget figures, had committed a serious crime. Now, those are all your news headlines, and it's over now to Kendall Makhamate with your sports news.
Thank you very much, Elvis. The time being just after 11:33, I've got your sports and newsroom. Now, South Africa's Brendan Grace has bagged his first title on the US PGA Tour after winning the RBC Heritage Golf Tournament in South Carolina. The world number 14 finished on 9 under par overall, 2 shots ahead of overnight leader Luke Donald of England and Scotland's Russell Knox.
Grace carded a 6 under par 65 on the opening day to share the lead with Donald at Hilton Head Island. But he was 3 shots behind the Englishman by the end of round 3. A brilliant 5 under par performance on the final day, which included 7 birdies, propelled him to the top of the leaderboard, good enough for his maiden PGA Tour win.
I like this golf course. I like the way it plays. I like the type of golf that I have to play around this. So, the plan worked out, and I'm super stoked. I'm really excited and just fortunate that I'm in this position.
The victory is also a tremendous confidence booster for the South African.
I'm sorted for a couple of years, which is nice, and I can really just tick this one off the box and head into maybe the next couple of majors and trying to win it, knowing that I have won out here now before and now I can do it again.
Knox, meanwhile, enjoyed 4 birdies on the front 9 for a final round 4 under par. Donald's winning drought, however, continues. He's not had a PGA or European Tour victory in 3 years. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Now Kenya has made history, winning their first ever series title as they beat favourites Fiji in Singapore, winning by 30 points to 7. The South African Sevens team finished third at the Singapore Sevens, the 8th stop of the World Rugby Sevens series. The Blitzboks suffered a last gasp loss to Fiji in the Cup semi-finals. However, they do move above New Zealand to second place on the overall standings, with 2 tournaments still to play.
The Blitzboks met New Zealand in the Cup quarterfinals. It's unusual for these two sides to meet so early in the Cup, but that was thanks to the Kiwis losing to France on day 1. Nevertheless, South Africa brushed aside their old foes in a titanic contest, 12-7, thanks to tries from Siabelo Sinatla and Kyle Brown. And then it was out of the frying pan and into the fire with a Cup semi-final matchup against the Blitzboks hoodoo side, Fiji. It was a contest of South Africa's superior defense and tackling against the Fijians' peerless offloading ability in the tackle. Coach Neil Powell's side took the lead 3 times, with tries from Justin Gedult, Chris Dry, and a particularly special effort from the lightning-fast Sinatla. But each time Fiji reeled the Blitzboks back in. And just as it seemed as though the contest was heading for extra time, Fiji struck from the kickoff for the 26-21 victory, sending South Africa to the 3rd place match for the 4th time in 5 tournaments. Onto the 3rd place match, where the Blitzboks came up against a stubborn Argentina team. It took most of the first half to break the resistance, but once the dam walls burst, South Africa scored 4 tries for the 28-0 win to finish 3rd for the 3rd time this season.
It's always tough off the back of a semi-final like that. I think the guys showed a hell of an effort in that semi-final. It was a huge game against Fiji. But I mean, what an effort to come back in this 3rd, 4th place game and show what we're capable of.
Kenya won the Singapore Sevens, upsetting Fiji 37 in the final. However, Fiji remained top of the overall standings. South Africa moved into 2nd place, 8 points behind Fiji and 4 in front of New Zealand, with 2 tournaments in France and then England still to come in May. Simon Burke, SABC News.
And so SuperSport United are in the top 8 of the Absa Premiership log following an emphatic 2-0 victory over Platinum Stars. This as Bloemfontein Celtic held the University of Pretoria to a 1-1 draw in the other entertaining league encounter.
Platinum Stars had won their 3 home matches before drawing against Ajax Cape Town away. 10th place SuperSport United were looking to break into the top 8. They came into this match 1 point behind 9th place Ajax Cape Town. The 2 teams closest to them dropped valuable points on Saturday. A win was non-negotiable for coach Stuart Baxter, who is looking to impress his new employers.
What a great finish from Kingston Ngata.
His players looked to adopt to his style of play.
That's a great performance, I think, from the players. First half we were pressing and we were making good long attacks, and we were trying to threaten all the time behind and between their back line. And I think once we got 2-0 in front, the discipline of the players to keep playing, keep doing those ABCs that are a bit boring, but we've got to do them.
It's difficult. I thought the first half we didn't do well. I think the goals that came I think it was one was a set piece, 2 set pieces in fact, and we spoke about this. But yeah, when you're not switched on for 90 minutes, you get punished in the second half. I mean in the first half, and I thought we came out better in the second half, but you couldn't go past their defense. And what can I say? I think we tried better in the second half than we tried in the first half.
The match between Bloemfontein Celtic and University of Pretoria was really a relegation battle. Only 6 points separates 12th place Celtic from Amatax, who are 14th on the log. The match was so crucial that there is a very slim chance of recovery if any team falls from now on. However, permutations showed that University of Pretoria wanted it more. Celtic fought gallantly to cement their position. Themba Shebaise, APC News.
Now, looking at the results from the Premiership action, here's a quick summary of those results. First up, as you can see from Friday, Maritzburg United a 2-0 loss against the Black Aces at the Herigwala Stadium. Then on Saturday, some very interesting results coming out. First up, Orlando Pirates trouncing Golden Arrows 4-1. Then Polokwane City beating Chipa United 1-0. Mamelodi Sundowns cementing their lead at the top of the log standings, a 2-0 win against Jomo Cosmos. Kaizer Chiefs relinquishing their defense of their title because mathematically there's no way they can catch up to Mamelodi Sundowns with the games that are left. And it's a 0-0 draw against Ajax Cape Town. Bidvest a 0-0 against Free State Stars. And then on Sunday, 17th of April, we also had Platinum Stars 2-0. They lose to SuperSport United. Then Bloem Celtic a 1-0 draw against the University of Pretoria. We'll now go through to the log standing, starting with the top 8, where in the top 8 you'll see that Mamelodi Sundowns have pulled away a little bit from Bidvest, 6 points ahead. Bidvest Platinum Stars come through, and Kaizer Chiefs have relinquished their defense of their title. 5 games to go. Mathematically, no way they can catch up with Mamelodi Sundowns. SuperSport United, Chipa United swapping places 7 and 8. We go through to the bottom half of the log. And there you can see Free State Stars and Ajax Cape Town slipping downwards, 33 and 32 points respectively. University of Pretoria, Jomo Cosmos and Maritzburg United bringing up the rear on 21, 20 and 16 points respectively. Now, this past weekend brought some of the most exciting action seen on the sports field. From IPL cricket to track and field heroics, the action was scintillating. Now, here's what we think stood out, and here are our moments of brilliance. First up, we had Siya Kolisi's try in the Stormers' narrow loss to the Lions.
And now Broom looking for Kolisi. Oh, a step from Kolisi. What a try from the Stormers. Straight back in it.
Well, Siya Kolisi with the inside out. He's got dancing feet, the big man. He's been absolutely desperate to get back onto the field. It's inside out. Elton Yankees is on the wrong dance floor.
Then to Sundowns forward, Leonardo Castro doing what he does best.
There is class! Absolute class! A goal from the top drawer. That is a thing of beauty. Gracias, amigo. Whoa!
Then Caster Semenya turned on the magic in Stellenbosch.
Going past Tolofelo Tipe. Does Tipe have an answer for her? I don't think so. Semenya's running away with this. The crowd is on their feet. And it is Caster Semenya. Tipe going backwards. Zoe Engler going past Tolofelo Tipe. But Semenya has a massive gap right now. And the time, 50.76 seconds for Caster Semenya. That is phenomenal. And not only is that the fastest time in South Africa for many years, it is the fastest time in the world in 2016. And this is not her specialist event.
Then a fantastic catch in the deep by Watson and Visa.
Takes it. Oh, what a catch that is. David Visa is the man running now. Has he touched the rope? Because if this catch is completed, it is absolute brilliance.
And
chasing their first ever cup win on the circuit.
And finally, Kenya's demolition of Fiji to take their first cup victory in the 7 series.
Goes the length. Will be a hero in
Kenya, if they can hang on. He's got wheels for days. Kenya, we started with 16 teams here in Singapore. There can only be one champion, and it is Kenya. This is a little different. Time to get your Kenyan on, folks. Enjoy. How good is that?
Oh, I've been waiting for this for a very long time. Can't they move nearly as fluid as you, Sean?
There you have it, wrapping up the weekend for you, all nice and tight for you. I know Elvis and Dr. Martin are standing by. I'm handing straight over to them.
Thank you, Kendall. Now, the African National Congress launched its manifesto this weekend in Port Elizabeth ahead of the local government elections. A huge turnout of over 100,000 ANC faithfuls were expected, but headlines in the Sunday newspapers indicate that there was a huge huff, but no puff, and empty seats to prove it. Meanwhile, the Justice Minister, Michael Masuta, will petition the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein after the High Court in Pretoria dismissed the state's bid for leave to appeal Janus Wallace's parole. Our social commentator, Dr. Leonard Martin, now joins us to look at the week that passed and some of the stories that unfolded during the week and how it impacted on society. Doctor, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning to the listeners.
Now, the ANC's launch and its manifesto this weekend in PE was a bit disappointing for the party, it seems, but they say they're happy. What does this spell? Does it maybe spell discontent from ANC supporters?
Well, I mean, there are reasons given for bad management of the transport. But nevertheless, either way, it is an indicator that there is a change in terms of the readiness of voters, citizens, to actually fill those seats. And I'm almost certain a critical assessment will have to be made.
This is a very big stronghold for the ANC in the past.
Absolutely. In fact, it is the stronghold of the ANC, if you look at the stalwarts that have emerged out of that area. So there's a problematic involved here in terms of trying to reach an understanding as to why the spontaneity of actually attending these rallies hasn't actually met expectations.
Now, during the launch, President Jacob Zuma says that the ANC will keep councillors accountable and call on all the provincial structures to follow party protocols and refrain from speaking out of turn. Is this perhaps a warning to those who speak of small Inyana skeletons in their cupboards?
I think it should be seen more as a question of the necessity of discipline, particularly within this particular period. It is going to be a very intensely contested local government election. And I think the concerns would be that if one speaks out of turn, it could be misinterpreted by the opposition. Nevertheless, the issue of councillors has been a sore point in terms of delivery for quite some time. And it should be welcomed that councillors should be made accountable all round. And of course, this will be applying to all political parties. To the extent that there are councillors, the pressure for accountability within the context of our democratic values can no longer be avoided.
Now, Justice Minister Michael Masuta will petition the Supreme Court of Appeal in Bloemfontein after the High Court in Pretoria dismissed the state's bid for leave to appeal Janus Wallace's parole. Does this reflect that we do have that separation of powers and that justice is alive and well?
Well, first of all, those separation of powers cannot be altered. And whatever the fallout is in relation to verdicts or outcomes, these, of course, will always be contested. And, of course, those contesting the judgment have the opportunity, perhaps the last opportunity, to make their position felt.
Now, we believe that the Khoisan held a round table here in Johannesburg, a unity round table. What was that all about? Do you know anything about it?
Well, I think it's been a long time coming that the Khoisan voice has been dormant in the historical narrative of South Africa from the days of colonialism. Now, moving straight to the point, the Khoisan have put unity at the center of forward movement in terms of issues on the land. It is critical that now the land issue is going to be brought to the fore more than ever. The Khoisan have gone back to the days of their struggle against colonialism, which has been a heroic struggle for over 200 years. The Khoisan kept the Portuguese, the British, and the Dutch in a state of struggle before the Cape was actually consolidated. But I think more than ever, the Khoisan have incorporated the imposed identity which is an identity which is sustained by the state to this day, of colored people, into the context of forward movement. So the issue of land, the issue of social cohesion, but also the rewriting of the South African narrative is definitely on the cards.
Dr. Martin, as usual, thank you so much for coming in and joining us here on The Week That Passed. That was social commentator Dr. Leonard Martin, our weekly slot, looking at the major stories that unfolded during the week. Now that's where we got to leave it for today on Newsroom. We've run out of time. We'll see you bright and early, same time, same place tomorrow morning, right here on the same channel. 404, your channel of choice. I'm Elvis Preslin. Arrivederci. Ciao for now.
Good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon, only on the SABC News channel.
How does this extreme heat affect basic conditions of living?
Food spoils more readily, and the risk of food poisoning outbreaks or food poisoning in a household.
Should we experience another heat wave soon, and it's coming?
First sign is always thirst. Thirst is a sign that already your body started to be dehydrated, and that's a very early sign that most people will be able to sort of pay attention to and then act on. That doesn't warrant any serious medical attention. But the minute that you start to feel slightly nauseous, that you start to feel dizzy, that's a sign that you need to stop what you're doing, get out of the sun, get into a cool area, slow down your intensity, get hydrated, cool down.
Join Dr. Silla Mutawung every Saturday from 9 till 10 in the morning.